part of Alabama caught our attention. Coal miners in one community, they've been on strike now for months.
Working as long as 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, in some of the most dangerous conditions.
I really think that the labor movement is the single greatest force for democracy in the history of the United States.
The story of Alabama is a story of not just resilience, but of militancy.
I say no contract, you say no code. No contract, no contract.
If we ain't all free, ain't none of us free.
You're listening to Alabama's only union talk radio show, The Valley Labor Report, with Adam Keller and Jacob Morrison.
Hello, Tennessee Valley. This is the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host and fellow agitator Adam Keller, and we are broadcasting live online and on the radio from the heart of the Tennessee Valley, the Spice Radio studio in Huntsville, Alabama. Today, 1,000 cards have already been signed in Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee, beating the 30% minimum threshold to get an NLRB election. The campaign there continues. We talked to Zack Heyen about the Automotive Free Clinic and trends in the automotive repair industry. We talked to Tate Heuer about benefits available to federal employees. All that and more on today's Valley Labor Report. If you want to be part of the program, we've got a phone number and the line is open. You can call or text 844-899-TVLR. That is 844-899-8857. You can also leave us a voicemail or send us a text message throughout the week, and we might respond to it on the next show. If you haven't gotten enough of us by the time that we wrap up here on the radio, or if you just want to see what we're up to throughout the week, you can find us anywhere you find anything online: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, all at the Valley Labor Report. Just a reminder, your support helps us stay on the air. Our largest single source of funding comes directly from our listeners. So if you want to make a one-time or monthly recurring contribution, you can go to tvlr.fm/donate. You can also become a patron at patreon.com/The Valley Labor Report if you are more comfortable with that interface. We've also got some merch, tvlr.fm/store, if you would like to buy some of our new shirts or our stickers that we always keep in stock. And if you're a member of a union, then definitely think about getting your local or international to sponsor the show. We could not do it without our union partners.
That's right, and let me add a disclaimer that any viewpoints or opinions expressed in this program belong solely to their author and do not necessarily represent any organization or sponsor. We welcome all of our listeners, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, Unclaimed Mysteries Internet Radio, WVNN, WZZA, WHIV, or through your favorite podcast app. We are proud to be part of the Labor Radio Podcast Network and encourage our listeners to check that out. As most of you know, we are not media professionals, just a few diehard union brothers who believe that Alabama and the South's labor movement and working class deserve a bigger platform. We're hoping this project can make a difference on that front, and we could not do it without you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in. Whether you're a loyal fan or a first-time listener, we appreciate you spending some time with us this morning.
That's right, folks. So, lots to talk about today. Lots going on. Got a couple of good guests for the main show. Also, just for folks that listen to us on the radio, and maybe you catch us at the beginning of the show and not as much towards the end, but we do have a whole second half of the program. We've got a second half of the show that is online only, and we have some great stuff lined up for the second half of the show, too. The way that we kind of generally, it's not like set in stone, but generally speaking, the way that we try to organize our program is that the first half of the show centers more around Alabama stuff, Southern stuff, local stuff. And then the second half of the program is broader, is more national and international in scope. And so in the second half of the show today, we've got Connor Lewis, president of the Seven Mountains Central Labor Council in Pennsylvania. He's going to be talking to us about News Guild members who are organizing for their union to call for a ceasefire in Gaza, and also going to be talking to us about some wins for the building trades that they have been winning in Center County, Pennsylvania. So lots of good stuff there. We're also going to be talking about what is going on in Sweden with Tesla. There are Scandinavian unions in several different countries, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, are all striking Tesla. And not only are they striking Tesla, but other unions are going on sympathy strikes against Tesla, so much so that, like, the janitors are not cleaning their warehouses, and the postal, the letter carriers are not delivering their mail. Okay, so huge stuff going on there. Going to talk about that in the second half of the show. So if you don't usually, then definitely find us on YouTube and Facebook, and continue watching after we go off of the radio. So first up, we're going to get to what happened last week in Southern labor. Workers are always on the move. Lots of stuff happening in the South in the labor movement. Workers are filing and winning union elections. We are bargaining better contracts. We are fighting against and fighting for legislation, and so that doesn't get enough love, so we try to do a little bit of a corrective and keep you kind of broadly informed about what's going on in the South. So in new campaigns, workers who were likely led or pushed by their employer at GTA RATP DEV in Greensboro, North Carolina, filed a petition to decertify the Amalgamated Transit Union, ATU, Locals 714 and 1493. As the unions representing the 12 employees there. 9 workers at Coquille Del Mar Guest House in San Juan, Puerto Rico, filed for a union election with the Coquille Del Mar Workers Union. 20 workers at Starbucks in St. Anne, Missouri, filed for a union election with Starbucks Workers United, as did 26 more Starbucks workers in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. 5 workers at Wells Fargo Bank in Daytona Beach, Florida, filed for a union election with the Communication Workers of America, CWA, becoming the third group of workers at Wells Fargo to do so. 22 workers in fuels at UPS in Louisville, Kentucky, filed for a union election with the General Drivers, Warehousemen, and Helpers, Teamsters, local union number 89, as did 28 ramp and tug workers at UPS at the same facility in the same city. The employer filed for a union election after a majority of the 10 workers at CEMEX Construction Materials South, LLC, in New Braunfels, Texas, showed support for unionization with the Teamsters, Local 657. You will remember that CEMEX is the company that the Teamsters took to bat over unfair labor practices in a separate union election that got us the new CEMEX standard at the National Labor Relations Board, so the company's probably going to be a little bit more careful in the union election this time. 15 security guards at Walden Security in Washington, D.C. filed for a union election with the United States Court Security Officers. The employer filed for a union election after a majority of the 290 workers at Places for People Incorporated in St. Louis, Missouri, showed support for unionization with the Service Employees International Union, SEIU, Healthcare Missouri, Kansas. Workers who were likely led or pushed by their employer at Gallows Point Resort in St. John, Virgin Islands, filed a petition to decertify the United Industrial Workers, a Seafarers International Union affiliate, as the union representing the 18 workers there. Workers likely led or pushed by their employer at Taylor Correc in Campbellsville, Kentucky, also filed a petition to decertify the Teamsters Local 89 as the union representing the 36 workers there. 26 workers at Kansas City PBS in Kansas City, Missouri, filed for a union election with the National Association of Broadcast Employees and Technicians, NABET, CWA. In campaign updates, the UAW International President Shawn Fain visited Toyota's Georgetown, Kentucky plant last week after speaking to the Kentucky AFL-CIO. And UAW Local 862, which the president of UAW Local 862, Todd Dunn, which represents Ford workers at the Louisville plant, said, "I feel very confident we're going to organize Toyota." He told us during our conversation on the show that as far back as the stand-up strike months ago, workers in the Toyota plant were already wearing UAW shirts on the plant floor. In election results, professional workers for the city of Richmond voted to unionize by a 3-1 margin with SEIU Local 512. This comes after the administrative and technical employees voted to unionize with the same local in June, and the trades voted to unionize with the Teamsters in November. 8 workers at the Student Borrowers Protection Center in Washington, D.C. withdrew their petition for a union election with the Office and Professional Employees International Union, OPEIU, Local 39. The decertification petition was withdrawn at Bloom Medical's of Missouri Dispensary in O'Fallon, Missouri, meaning that the United Food and Commercial Workers, UFCW Local 655, will continue to represent the 13 workers there. And the decertification petition was withdrawn at the National Iranian American Council in Washington, D.C., meaning that the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, IBEW Local 1900, will continue to represent the 4 workers there. 11 workers at grant makers for effective organizations in Washington, D.C. withdrew their petition for a union election with 1199 SEIU, United Healthcare Workers East. Workers at TransDev Services in Baton Rouge, Louisiana voted 33-1 in favor of unionization with ATU Local 1546. Workers at 2 different Starbucks in Atlanta, Georgia, both voted unanimously 10-0 in favor of unionization with Starbucks Workers United. And workers at Centerpoint Energy in Byram, Mississippi voted, and this hurts, 9-64 against unionization with the United Association of Plumbers and Pipe Fitters, UA Local 619. Workers at the Dar Aerospace in Stuart, Florida, voted 133-42 in favor of unionization with the United Automobile Workers, UAW. Workers at Titan Concrete in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, voted 17-72 to decertify the International Union of Operating Engineers, IUOE Local 487. And workers at Unity Healthcare voted 102-17 in favor of unionization with the Union of American Physicians and Dentists, AFSCME, Local 206. Workers at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, voted 909-73 in favor of unionization with Emory Workers United. Had a couple of grievances last week. A reporter for the Dallas Morning News resigned after management caved to political pressure from elites in the city, escalating discipline beyond what the CBA outlines for what the Dallas News Guild calls a, quote, basic mistake. The Guild condemned the actions of the paper in a tweet last week. The Birmingham Waterworks Employee Association delivered a letter to the Birmingham Waterworks Board regarding inequity in discipline, promotions, and salaries, saying that morale has dipped to an, quote, all-time low. Apparently, a similar letter was written and delivered in 2005. In strikes and bargaining updates, 2,000 National Nurses United members at Ascension Hospitals in Austin, Texas, and Wichita, Kansas, went on a one-day strike, which the hospitals followed with an additional 3-day lockout. Cafeteria workers at Guilford County Schools went on a 2-day sick-out strike for higher wages, and the Southern Workers Assembly issued a statement of support. SAG-AFTRA ratified their new contract with the production companies by a near 80% margin. Call Center Workers United, a CWA affiliate organizing Maximus call center workers who man the phones for Medicare, Obamacare, etc., announced that they are holding a rally next week and inviting allies. They're trying to pressure Health and Human Services Secretary Becerra to do something about their abysmally low wages. 1,100 Teamsters went on strike at DHL's largest and busiest logistics hub in North America, the Cincinnati Northern Kentucky Airport. This comes after a 98% strike authorization vote and a failure on the part of the company to reach a fair contract with the newly unionized workers. Not long after the strike was announced, the Teamsters approved an additional $125 a week in strike pay, increasing the current strike pay from what was already the highest in the labor movement to $625 per week. Teamsters International President Sean O'Brien threatened to deliver a UPS strike, setting a deadline of Monday for UPS to rehire its 35 Louisville administrative staff that recently unionized with Teamsters Local 89, or else all 14,000 UPS Teamsters in the city will walk off the job. And UPS caved to the pressure yesterday, Friday, announcing that all 35 administrative staff have been rehired with back pay.
Hell yeah.
Had a couple of updates in internal union affairs. GM workers across the country are officially being converted to permanent status now as the new contract with the UAW has been ratified. In Spring Hill, Tennessee, they held an induction ceremony last week for their 125 members who are getting this conversion. The city of Decatur has, and then in policy, politics, and legislation, the city of Decatur has fired 3 officers in the police killing of Steve Perkins without releasing their names, presumably so they can get a job and a license to kill in another municipality. The National Council of Urban Education Associations, made up of the largest NEA locals in urban areas, passed a resolution calling on the NEA leadership to pressure Biden and members of Congress to support a ceasefire in Gaza. This motion was put forward by the Amarillo Education Association in Texas. The USPS is proposing the closure of mail processing operations in Charleston, West Virginia, which would result in the loss of 800 jobs. The United Mine Workers of America issued a statement in strong opposition. Speaking of the UMWA, members were in D.C. last week lobbying for the approval of a new silica rule by the Mine Safety and Health Administration. The American Federation of Government Employees endorsed the recently introduced VA Correct Compensation Act, which would allow federal unions to represent their members in matters of payroll errors. Most federal employees already get this right to representation in this area, but several job classifications in the VA are exempt, including physicians, dentists, and more. The newly introduced bill would strike that exemption. AFGE Local 17 President Douglas Massey testified in Congress last week about the detrimental impact of the inexperienced agency leadership on VA employees and the people they serve, specifically the pay cuts for attorneys, inadequate training, and unreasonable quotas. Limestone County, Alabama voters rejected the continuation, not the imposition, the continuation of a tax that funds education. This in one of the fastest growing counties in the state. According to reporting, there will likely be another election next year as there are concerns that the public was not properly educated about what they were voting on. The current tax provisions sunset in 2025, so they will need to move quickly to schedule another election. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton is threatening to prosecute any doctor who performs an abortion that the courts sanctioned, an abortion for a woman with a non-viable pregnancy. The U.S. State Department has recently proposed new rules for the J1 Au Pair program. While these new rules include important improvements to ensure fair pay for au pairs, which is a live-in child care worker on a temporary visa to work and study, they also jeopardize labor protections that au pairs and other domestic workers have fought hard to win under federal, state, and local laws, according to the National Domestic Workers Alliance. Specifically, the NDWA states that the new rule would take away protection from harassment and discrimination and even workers' compensation. They are asking supporters to sign a petition in opposition to the new rule. That wraps it up for last week in Southern Labor. This week, we're going to take a break really quick, and we will be right back with Zack Heyen talking about the Automotive Free Clinic. Benefit Architects has proudly supported union members and union-made products for over 35 years. If you are a federal employee and an AFGE member, you're eligible for hundreds of dollars in money-saving benefits, including group life insurance, dental insurance, and AFLAC insurance. Additionally, if you're a union member but don't work for the federal government, you can still qualify for several of these money-saving policies. So give Tate Heuer a call at 256-215-6769 for details and to enroll. Again, that is Tate Heuer at 256-215-6769.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and family members are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough even to keep their jobs. We can fix this. It's time for us to find a way to close the health care coverage gap so that people can remain at work. Let's make this a priority. Let's close this gap and cover Alabama. To learn more and how you can help, visit coveralabama.org.
The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have stood with the working people of Alabama for over 40 years, providing skilled legal representation for your workplace injury claims. When you are injured on the job, it can be a scary time. The attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs have the experience to guide you through the process to make sure that you and your family are properly taken care of and your rights are protected. If you need help, call the attorneys at Maples, Tucker & Jacobs at 855-617-9333 or visit online at www.mtnj.com. No representation is made that the quality of legal services provided is greater than the quality of legal services provided by other law firms.
Support for the Valley Labor Report comes from the International Federation of Professional and Technical Engineers Union. Learn more by visiting www.ifpte.org.
Attention union members, membership organizations, podcasters, or anyone with a payment processing need. The future is here, and your organization needs to be prepared by working with Unionly. With Unionly, your union or organization can take payments on a mobile device, eliminating processing fees, giving you a better price than other payment processing methods, while at the same time supporting a union-friendly business with a specialized skill set to meet your needs. Your members will thank you when they pay their dues at their convenience without waiting in line to deposit cash or check. Start preparing for the future today by calling 206-595-8631 or visiting unionly.io.
Are you looking for a better future, a career that can have you set for life, and to be a part of something that's bigger than yourself? If you are, then consider a skilled trades apprenticeship with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. The work of IUPAT is all around us, from the industrial painters who work on the bridges to drywall finishers, floor coverers, the glazers who install the glass in our skylines, and so much more. With an IUPAT apprenticeship, you earn while you learn and receive benefits while learning the trade, including a pension. We provide world-class education free of charge. That's right, no student debt. Our starting salaries for apprentices that graduate is above the national median salary with benefits for entire families. And you have the flexibility to take your trade wherever you'd like in the country to work. IUPAT District Council 77 covers our entire region, so give Adam Booth a call at 205-603-3142 for more information. Again, that phone number is 205-603-3142. Come build a better future with us today and join IUPAT.
I'm attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law, the name with proven results.
Support for this program is provided by the International Association for Machinists and Aerospace Workers, Local Lodge 44 in Decatur, Alabama. Learn more at IAMAW44.org.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell, how the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Labor creates all wealth should go to labor, and you are listening to the Valley Labor Report. My name is Jacob Morrison, here with my co-host Adam Keller. We're broadcasting live online and on the radio, and we are not stopping. We appreciate everybody watching us on YouTube. We've got 20 some odd folks watching and only 20 likes. Let's get those likes up. Appreciate everybody watching. Austin, Jared, William in the chat, Kentucky DHL on strike. Indeed. Vonda, Solidarity. Proud to see the UAW stand up, animating worker organizing efforts here in Tennessee. That's right. Really excited to see that. Caballo says, greetings from Teos County. James says, FedEx Courier from Tampa here. Very cool. You should reach out to the Teamsters. Mark says, take action to support AFGE's VA Correct Payroll Act. Yes, indeed. That's a very important piece of legislation. And shocking that it is not already the law. Shocking that there are some classifications of federal employee that do not have the right to union representation when the agency does not pay them what they're owed. It's just bonkers. Absolutely wild. Another Jacob in the chat says also here, appreciate that. So, Adam, I believe we've got Zach in the Zoom now, right?
Yeah, I think so. Let me make sure I can get him on camera and everything. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Yeah, so Zach is the founder, and I'm not totally sure what other titles you have. I think executive director at the Automotive Free Clinic, which provides free and low-cost car repairs to people in need down in Montgomery. Zach, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, guys. I just wanted to start off by saying how much I appreciate y'all. I know how hard it is to build something from scratch, and y'all have built an important media outlet in Alabama where there's nothing here to cover labor and working class issues. So I want to just speak to how much, we at the Automotive Free Clinic and workers across the South really appreciate what y'all do.
Hell yeah. Really appreciate that, man. So let's start with telling us a little bit more about the Automotive Free Clinic, because it has been a while since you've been on the show. For folks who maybe don't remember, tell us a little bit about what y'all are, what you do for folks.
Yeah, we're a 501c3 registered nonprofit automotive repair shop. We essentially do automotive repair at cost, and we don't mark up the parts at all. We can't mark up the parts legally. And if people want to give a donation for the labor, we do tell them how much it's worth, but it's totally voluntary. And we've been in business since May of 2020, so almost March of 2020, excuse me. So it's been almost 4 years, and in that time, we've repaired almost 500 vehicles.
That's awesome.
We moved into a 6-bay shop last year. And in that 1 year, we've done 160-something vehicles, which is about double what we were doing a year previous to that. So we've done pretty well. I mean, money's tight, and anytime we're all volunteer organization. We do get a little bit of stipend here and there when we got the money, but pretty much all volunteer organization. Everybody's real dedicated. Joe Fontaine, Christy Wells, Joe Smith, Andy Wells. All great people, they're all workers, some retired workers, but other types of workers. And, it's built by the working class for the working class. So we're real proud of what we've accomplished, and we couldn't do it without all the people that have helped us. We've had almost 1,000 individual donations like y'all. Individual donations are our biggest revenue stream. And we are thankful for every single person who has donated even $5. So, the way that the community has stepped up with us, especially our church, First Christian Church of Montgomery, the way they've stepped up for us is just nothing short of amazing, and maybe even a miracle.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome.
That's pretty much the story of the Automotive Free Clinic.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Just to hear about, the growth, and you're right, it's so hard to sustain a project like this for the long haul. and it's always hard to fund it. But yeah, really applaud what you're doing, and I know it's making a difference. Hundreds of folks who have experienced car repairs now, and that's just fantastic. I love to see the mutual aid in practice, and you do have an event coming up. That's why you're here. You wanted to talk a little bit about an event you're hosting on trends in the automotive repair industry. So tell us a little bit about the event, what you have going on, and why folks should be interested.
Yeah, the purpose of the event is to, what John Haney said, who's one of the panelists, is to demystify auto repair. And even in our shop, which is set up really to be beneficial to the customer, people are still confused and sometimes upset about how much auto repair costs, how long it takes, that sort of stuff. Right. And we want to facilitate a conversation between industry professionals and the public so that we can see that we're all human beings and that we're all doing the best we can, and maybe sort of dig out of the hole we're in the automotive repair industry. Some of the distrust is because of the business model of the automotive repair industry, which I don't think is very, beneficial to techs, service writers, or customers. But that's right. Another story. Our panelists are Jesus Abete of Advanced Auto Parts. He's our parts specialist. Christy Wells, who is our office manager and service writer at the AFC. John Haney, who is the owner of Liberty Automotive in Argo, Alabama. He's also a master technician. And Neil Ham, who is a Lexus tech in Montgomery. And he's almost a master technician. I think he lacks one certification to be a master. So we got some real good technicians, pretty experienced people. And we're hoping maybe we can get a tool specialist on to talk about, it's expensive. Tooling in a shop is really expensive. I would say that we have in our shop, between all of our boxes and the specialty tools that we probably have $100,000 worth of tools in the shop. And, I don't think people understand that kind of investment, and we still don't have all the tools we need. We're working on the floor. We don't have lifts. We don't have a tire machine. We don't have a balance machine. Our air conditioning machine is iffy. So I want people to be able to understand that, it is really expensive to work on these modern cars with all the electronics that are on them. And it takes a wide range of knowledge to be able to effectively work on a vehicle these days. If you buy a new 2023 car, that car is going to have probably upwards of 50 computers on it. And all of those computers talk to each other. And if one of them goes down, it's very possible the car won't even start. So, we want to try to help have a conversation between the public and industry professionals so that everybody can learn, have a frank conversation, so everybody can learn from each other and sort of walk away with it with a better understanding of what the customer side wants and what the technician side wants.
Yeah, something that comes to my mind in you describing this, and talking about these trends is I remember growing up, my grandfather could fix pretty much anything that went wrong with his truck, right? And if, my parents' car, something happened, he was that resource. And I think so many families had that kind of resource, an uncle or grandpa, a dad, somebody in the family who could fix your vehicle. And that's becoming increasingly rare to even, to have the skill set in your family, and then also to have the appropriate skill set to meet today's vehicles. Like you said, with the computers and everything, it's just not what it used to be. The seems like the barrier to entry is higher in terms of getting into auto repair. It used to be easier to just learn how to kind of do some stuff on the side. Yeah, maybe you couldn't do everything, but you could fix a little bit of stuff, and that's increasingly difficult to do. So, and I think that's that speaks to the importance of what you're trying to get out with this event, and what you're doing with the free clinic as well. Because it is a trend that we're experiencing as working people, because especially in Alabama, I mean, hell, we have to have a car to get anywhere, right? To get to work, to get to, the store, to pick up our kids, to take them to school, the whole thing. It's, you cannot survive without a vehicle in Alabama. It's just so difficult. And so that's why I think it's so relevant to working people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what we do is a really important service. And yes, I have a PhD from Berkeley, and I have 4 ASE certifications. I compare one of those ASE certifications to the amount of knowledge I had to have for that one PhD. So if you are a master tech, to me, it's like having 9 PhDs. So I hope people understand the level of it. Like, it's not just a physical job. It is a physical job, but it's not just a physical job. It's a very intellectually challenging job to understand how all of these systems work and how they work together to make the car run. I mean, most modern cars have a computer for their headlights. Can you believe that?
Right.
A computer for your headlights. They have a computer for your lift gate. They have a computer for your door windows, and there's a computer for everything. And they're all hooked together on what's called the CAN bus, and they all talk to each other. And the ABS talks to the traction control, talks to the transmission. They all talk to each other, and if one of them's out, you got to figure out which one ain't talking. And it's a big time challenge to be able to diagnose vehicles. And I know people who to help customers will charge a hour and a half diag on a diag that took 5 to 6 hours. And they're just trying to help customers out. And I know a lot of people do that. And then techs get upset about it because they spent 5 hours working on something and only got paid for 2. So that's why I'm talking about the business model is kind of not good for techs. It's not good for customers. Sort of kind of is only good for owners. And, I'd like to work through some thinking about how we could transform that business model into something that's good for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you having those kind of conversations and like trying to get that out there. And was there anything else you wanted to put out there, either about the event or just in general about, what you have going on with your project?
Yeah, we have a network of mutual aid and educational organizations called the Educational and Economic Resource Organizing Network, an organization in Sand Mountain called Sand Mountain Cooperative Education Center that's helping develop cooperatives, which is sort of relevant to what you guys talk about because unions and cooperatives are like sibling type organizations, both workplace democracy. We have disaster relief, farming, educational organizations, auto repair. There's like 7 organizations in the network, 7 or 8 organizations in the network. And I'm curious if there's opportunities between our mutual aid and educational network and unions to create wraparound services for working people in some sort of collaborative project. I know unions have worked on housing co-ops in the past. Unions have stretched out and done a lot of different types of things in the past. And I'm curious if our union brothers and sisters would be interested in helping us build some wraparound services. And this could be especially helpful during strike situations where the money's tight and, we could sort of put something together. Along those lines, we're in a mess in this country. Like it's a mess.
Right.
It's a mess. And I think unions and mutual aid are kind of the only way it's going to get fixed. Working people doing working people things is kind of the only way it's going to get fixed. And creating these wraparound services with new institutions and unions being one of those institutions could be a way to start saying, hey, why don't we try something different? Because what we're doing ain't working. And it really ain't. And so, I wonder if there's a chance to have some conversations with some union members, some union leaders about, trying to create a new set of institutions that can actually support working people.
Yeah, I've been having those same thoughts, and you and I will definitely be continuing those conversations because I think there's a lot of potential there. I think especially when we look back at labor's history, when labor was at its peak, and the types of services they were providing and the ways they were in the community, and the ways working people were taking care of other working people and building our own institutions, and also, taking care of our own resources, and being less reliant on the system, so to speak. And I think that's going to be increasingly important for us. And I think there's a lot of potential. Like you said, strikes are very difficult. And the more we can have institutions around us that can help take care of us and take care of each other, especially when we are fighting a long fight or a tough fight, that's critical. So, yeah, I really appreciate you bringing that up. Appreciate you joining us this morning, Zach, and definitely hope you have a successful event. Remind us the details on when and where and how people can show up.
Yeah, the event is at our shop, which is at 1259B South Memorial Drive, Prattville, Alabama, 36067. You go in the RV shop, go behind the RV shop, and our shop is behind the RV shop. It's from 3 to 5 on December 16th, 3 to 5 Central on December 16th. There are virtual options. You can go to my Twitter page at Redneck Activist, and there's a link there. There's also a link on the Automotive Free Clinic page on Facebook where you can sign up if you want to attend virtually. We would prefer people to attend in person if possible, because we're trying to get some people from across the country to attend virtually, and there's only 30 slots available. So if you can attend in person, please come down and see us. It's going to be a fun day, a good opportunity for everybody to have a good conversation. But if you can attend in person, please register online. It's only $15. And looking forward to seeing you on December 16th.
And Zach, where can people, if folks can't make it to the event, but they still want to donate to the Automotive Free Clinic, where can they do that?
AutomotiveFreeClinic.org.
Thank you.
Awesome.
And you can also donate on the event page. You can donate both on the event page and on AutomotiveFreeClinic.org.
Okay. Awesome. Great. Well, thanks so much, Zach. I really appreciate it. Wishing you well. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, y'all.
Great.
Appreciate that. Yeah. I just love that idea. I think it's great the more we can do mutual aid as working people, it's very important, especially as conditions just seem to get worse year after year, right? So, love those kind of projects, and anything we can do to elevate them, I think is really good.
Yep. Have we got Tate in the Zoom?
Let's see. Let me check. I think we may have Tate.
Perfect. Yeah, well, let's go ahead and bring him on. Tate Heuer is, let me go to my emails and look at his signature and get his official title, Regional Vice President for Benefit Architects. They have insurance and other benefits for AFGE members, federal employees here. That they've got several benefits that are only available to union members. They've been advertising on the show for a while, so if you are a regular listener, you should be familiar with the name. And as open season is closing for federal employees, we wanted to bring him on to dive into a little bit more about what they offer union members in the federal government. Tate, welcome to the program. Thanks for coming.
Hey, thanks, Jacob. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, talk to us about Benefit Architects. What is that exactly?
So our company, Benefit Architects, has been in business for over 30 years, since 1986. And we provide benefits to union members, and they're union member specific. So, we try to bridge a gap between some of the pitfalls of government insurance benefits, but we also offer benefits that's not available through OPM. And we're also branching out into other unions other than AFGE. Of course, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult, but we're trying to give our benefits to all of the AFL-CIO union members out there.
Great. And so I know that some of your benefits, I know for sure, are not limited to open season. There are some offerings that you have that you can sign up for at any time. Are there any of them that you have to sign up for before December 11th, which is the end of open season?
No, we don't have open seasons. We have what they call kind of like a rolling open season. So if you can get into some of our benefits by the 12th of the month, then your coverage begins on the 1st of the following month. Such as if we can get in by December the 12th, then you're going to have a January 1 effective date. And some of the benefits that we do on how that works is we offer certain dental insurance benefits that are comparable, if not better, than some of the OPM dental benefits. We offer disability insurance through AFLAC, which is not available to federal employees. Of course, federal employees have sick leave, but if you burn up all your sick leave, then you can potentially be put on leave without pay. And disability insurance would provide you a source of income, to pay bills until you can get back to work. Now, it does pay in conjunction with sick leave or annual leave, so you can double dip if you need to. However, if you're out of sick leave, then you're on leave, that leave without pay status. This would be the only source of income coming in to pay bills. And some of the pitfalls of government insurance is, one, the life insurance benefit. And if you hold FEGLI, which is your Federal Employees Group Life Insurance, it's a government contract. So it's not really and truly an insurance policy for a personal person. It's a government contract. The way that OPM and MetLife devise their plan is that it's a 5-year renewable term, which means that it goes up in price every 5 years. And then in retirement, it gets so unaffordable that most federal employees are going to have to cancel it. So they lose the coverage, they lose the investments that they make inside that insurance contract. And it's kind of a lose-lose situation. With the plan that union members can get in with us is an indexed universal life. So what happens is it's designed to stay level. So the premiums are designed to never go up. They have cash value that builds in the policy. And also they have permanent insurance benefits until age 120. Now, the old thinking of life insurance back in the day was, I've got to die before somebody gets paid. And our policies have living benefits associated with them, which means that if you were to get terminally, critically, or chronically ill, then they're going to pay you while you're living, and then your beneficiary would get the rest once you pass away. And so, it's a much better type of situation in the fact that, hey, if I get sick or if I have a situation that arises and I need money, then you could potentially get money off of that life insurance plan while you're living to take care of whatever it is you would want to take care of, in those situations.
Right. Yeah, that's really important. And especially, you mentioned the fact that the FEGLI increases in price as you get older.
That's true. They put you in 5-year age brackets. So every 5 years, such as 35, 40, 45, 50, it increases in price. And the latter age brackets, it significantly increases in price. And I think it's more than, I want to say 280% increase in price over a federal employee's career.
And so if I sent you an application last week to go ahead and get on this life insurance and the short-term disability insurance while I'm thinking about it during open season. But like you said, you can sign up anytime. If you sign up before the 12th of one month, it'll become active on the 1st of the next month. But once I sign up and once once it starts, then my price won't change for the life insurance?
Correct. Yes, we designed the policy to stay level so the price stays the same throughout your career. And all of our benefits are also portal. So if something would arise and you say, look, I don't want to work for the federal government anymore, then you get to take those with you at the same price. So you don't ever lose anything, lose the investments that you're making into an insurance policy. They follow you wherever you go.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. And so can you give us some ballpark figures? How much on a biweekly basis, every paycheck, would I need, for $100,000 life insurance policies, within certain parameters? I know that it's different for different folks, but.
Right. Well, premiums are all based on age and gender, of course, tobacco use, but if you're say 40 years old, then you can get a $100,000 policy for probably around $15 to $20 a pay period. And so, it's a type of deal to where if I can better my benefits through my union membership, then I can take and potentially offset the cost of my union dues because I can save money by using these benefits. And if I can save over a year's salary by using the life insurance benefit, then that saves many, many years worth of union dues right there. And essentially, we like to try to make union membership, free. So if you're a member and you're paying dues and you're using our benefits, you could potentially offset the cost of your dues and make your union membership free.
Let's talk about the short-term disability insurance for a little while longer, because that is something that people in my local have they have really kind of sung the praises of while they have been out of work for extended periods of time. That short-term disability insurance was, really a lifesaver in a lot of ways. Talk to us about that some more.
So our short-term disability is through AFLAC, and it's a guaranteed issue, which means that, if you have a health issue, you can get into it. It might not cover that health issue for the first year, but it covers you for up to 60% of your gross monthly income. And when you look at gross monthly income, 60% normally is about take-home pay. So all of our plans have a 0-day accident waiting period. So if you were to get hurt in an off-job accident, the plan starts to pay you day one. For sicknesses, you choose if you want to do a 7, a 14, or a 30-day wait on sicknesses. Now, I always kind of suggest looking at the 7 or the 14-day wait because you have to miss those days consecutively before they start to pay you on the next day. And if you're looking at a 30-day waiting period, yes, it might cost less, but to miss 30 consecutive days of work, you're probably really pretty sick. So I always kind of look and lean back towards the 7 or the 14-day waiting period. And we have the option of getting, a benefit period, such as a 7-day wait has a 6-month benefit period. But if you move to a 14-day wait, you're looking at a 6-month, a 12-month, or a 24-month benefit period. And, what a lot of experts say in the fact of disability insurance is that it is one of the most important insurances that you can buy. And it's because that it protects your most valuable asset. And your most valuable asset is your ability to earn a living wage. And if that's taken away from you, then you can't pay your house note, you can't pay your car note, you can't pay, anything if no money's coming in. And if you're burning through sick leave and you run out of it and you're on that leave without pay status, you're still having health insurance. So when you come back to work, you're still having to pay back health insurance premiums. It could affect your service comp date and things like that. So we don't want you to run out of sick leave. And that's what disability is there to kind of supplement that sick leave income, but also provide you an income if you're on that leave without pay status.
Yeah. It can be tough, and that's why it's really important. Before we let you go, open season is ending December 11th, and so so people are thinking about their health insurance, their dental insurance, and their optical insurance. And so, like you said, for your plans, you can sign up at any time, but talk to us about your vision and dental insurance offerings that you have.
So the dental insurance, here's the thing with that. You can sign up with us at any time. However, you cannot get out of OPM's dental insurance at any time. It has to be open season so that you can opt out of any dental insurance plans through OPM. We have 4 different dental plans. And we just added a couple of new ones. One is a Cigna HMO plan. Now, the fallback on an HMO is that you have to go see a dentist off of the list. But it's a very deep discounted plan. I think it starts at like $18 a pay period for one person. But cleanings, x-rays, and fillings are free.
Wow.
Root canals start at $50 out of pocket. A crown starts at $50 out of pocket. Implants are covered. So if you have a missing tooth and you need a post and a crown put on, I think it's covered as little as $9.75 out of pocket. So it's a very deep discounted plan if you're okay with going to a dentist off of the list. And Cigna has a wide provider spectrum. So they have, a lot of participating dentists in that HMO plan. And I mean, let's face it, I'm rolling on a small Cadillac in my mouth. So I've got, my crown and my root canal, it was root canal's $400, crown $600, paying $4,000 for an implant. So if I can save, $600 on a crown and a root canal, hey, that just paid my union dues for the rest of the year. Right. If I can save $3,000 on an implant, then that paid my union dues for several years. And so, I think that is the one of the most deep discounted plans that's out there. Of course, if you just can't live without your dentist, we do have a PPO plan where you can go see any dentist you want to. But it acts more like traditional health insurance, where you've got co-pays. You have a $50 annual deductible. There's a $5,000 annual max, but they cover cleanings and x-rays at 100%. And then any other major work is covered at 50%. And the good thing about our dental plan is, through the government, your children are cut off at age 22, to whereas we cover children until the age of 26. And also we cover domestic partners, to whereas the government doesn't cover domestic partners. Also, you don't have to provide birth certificates or anything like that to cover your children under our plans. Now, if the kids do reach above the age of 26, we can get their own plan as well. So we like to provide options, and like I said, you can better the benefits through your union membership with us.
Right. And what about vision?
The vision insurance is through Cigna. It's as little as $5 a pay period for one person. I think $14 for the whole family. But exams are a $10 copay. Contacts are covered at 100% after a $20 copay. I think they give $130 allowance on frames. So anything over the $130 allowance is a 20% discount, and then lenses are covered as well. So it's a very deep, pretty vision plan. And there's quite a few participating optometrists in the plan as well.
All right, so folks, you heard the man. If you are a federal employee in the area and you're not a union member, you're going to have to become a union member to get these benefits. You can go to afge.org/join, and then you'll go to enroll in e-dues, and the agency, if you live and work here in Huntsville, no matter what agency, you're going to select Army, and then that's where our local is nested under, Local 1858. And then fill out the rest of your information. Become a AFGE member. You can get access to these benefits. Tate, if you are a union member, how do I reach out to you and take advantage of this?
Well, you can always call me on my personal cell phone number. It's 501-529-3753. You can also go to our website, which is benefitarchitects.com. You can look at our brochures. You can request an appointment. We also have a retirement division service that kind of helps. It's free service, but it helps with paperwork. It kind of opens the doors, looks under rocks, make sure that you're not making some ill decisions at retirement that could affect you and your money throughout your retirement years. So you can go to our website and schedule an appointment with that.
And you mentioned that you're wanting to expand your partnerships beyond AFGE with other AFL-CIO unions. If I'm a union member in the area, and that sounds good to me, what do I need to do to get my local or international union partnered with y'all?
You can just reach out to me, and we can have a discussion about that and go from there. Because private sector unions are a little bit different than federal unions. So we've worked with those in the past, and we can try to help negotiate health insurance contracts and things like that for private sector employees. Of course, OPM's health insurance is kind of set in stone, and they give government subsidy to employees where we can't do any kind of subsidy. So as far as in federal employees, we don't do health insurance, but we can try to work with a private sector union to try to help better their contracts.
Okay. Great. Well, Tate Heuer, I appreciate you taking the time. This was great.
Hey, thanks, Jacob. I appreciate y'all having me today.
Yep. Talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
There you go, folks. Benefitarchitects.com. Check them out, especially if you're a federal employee. If you are a federal employee here in the area, you're not a union member, what are you doing? Join AFGE, and then you can take advantage of these fantastic benefits. Make your union membership free. So there you go.
Nice.
Appreciate everybody tuning in. David is in the chat. Morning, sisters and brothers. Darnell, Machinist Progressive Lodge 41, St. Louis, Missouri here. Solidarity, thank you. We got a text message from Randy again out of Elizabethtown, Kentucky, UAW Local 3047, telling us about the DHL strike. That's appreciate you keeping us up to date over there. Scott, unionize everything. Indeed. DL Sendero says, peace, comrades and fellow workers. Thank you. Charles Ghost says, TVLR. Union Joe says, solidarity. Scott says, some government workers are not allowed to join unions. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not aware of any government workers that are not allowed to join unions. I do not think that's true. You may or may not have a union in your agency already, but if you're a federal employee, you can unionize. I can't think of any exceptions to that rule at the moment. And so you can reach out to AFGE to see if to get a conversation started about organizing if you don't have a union in your shop. There you go. Tempest Lord Rayhan, solidarity from Houston, IWW. Thanks for watching. We've got almost 40 people watching the stream and only 36 likes. If you haven't liked the stream yet, please do on YouTube. Same for Facebook. With that, we're going to take a break. We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about what the UAW is up to in Tennessee. Stay tuned.
In Alabama, more than 200,000 of our friends and neighbors are living without health care coverage. Often folks can't stay healthy enough to keep their jobs. We need to fix this. Let's close the health care coverage gap. To learn more, visit coveralabama.org.
Support for this program also comes from the Iron Workers, Local 477. So if you are looking for contractors with lower than average EMR and TRIR, they tell me that if you need to know what those mean, then you will. Or if you need to supplement a workforce at any level for any amount of time, short or long term, if you need iron workers that come trained and certified at no extra cost, or if you need workers from superintendent down to general laborer, and you're looking to start work on a project, or you're unhappy with your current contractor situation, you need to call my friend Jeb Miles with the Iron Workers Local 477. They only work with the best in the business, vetted contractors, and can do all kinds of jobs, from roofing to steel and bridge erection, from welding to heavy rigging, from structural repairs to machinery alignment, and much more. They supply manpower on 4 of the 5 largest projects in North Alabama, so you know they're legit. If you need good quality, safe, efficient, diligent, and knowledgeable workers on your job, then you need the Iron Workers Local 477. Call Jeb Miles at 256-383-3334 or via email at local477@bellsouth.net, and make sure you tell them that you heard about them on the Valley Labor Report.
We're the nurses, firefighters, and claims representatives that help keep our government services running. We respond to natural disasters. We care for our nation's veterans, and we investigate discrimination in the workplace. We are federal and D.C. government workers, and we are proud to serve the American people. Working in more than 70 agencies across the government, we know we can fulfill our mission because our union has our back. Learn more at afge.org. Paid for by the American Federation of Government Employees, AFL-CIO.
The Laborers International Union of North America, Local 366, is proudly recruiting North Alabama workers to work construction and nuclear plant maintenance. If you're interested, please contact Donna at their training center to start the process. That phone number is 256-415-7452.
Again, that phone number is 256-415-7452. No experience is needed. Free training is offered, but you must be able to pass a background check and a drug test. Local hiring that grows our community with good-paying jobs that have benefits is their mission. Live better, work union, Local 366, feel the power.
Support for this program also comes from the Mid-South Council of Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union. Learn more at rwdsu.info.
I'm Attorney Tommy Sinyard. When you've been injured and need help, you need a lawyer who's with you.
Sinyard Law. You need attorneys always available to take care of you. Sinyard Law.
And keep you in the loop. It's your case. You need to know what's happening.
Sinyard Law. And never a charge to meet with us to evaluate your case. Sinyard Law.
A new firm, but an old name. One that will stay with you every step of the way.
Sinyard Law. The name with proven results.
As labor union members, we face our share of challenges in the workplace. But today, I want to talk about a different kind of challenge, the climate crisis. We've all seen the fury of Mother Nature, the storms that can turn lives upside down in an instant. That's why Hometown Action is launching our Climate Protection Project. We're heading out to 10 rural communities, listening to local folks, and taking action with them to protect communities impacted by climate disasters. And we need you, our union brothers and sisters, to join us. Together, we'll make a difference. Our strength on the job is undeniable, and now it's time to put that strength to work for the planet. Let's protect our communities, our families, and our future. Visit hometownaction.org today and sign up to volunteer for the Climate Protection Canvas.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Alabama's only union talk radio show. This is the Valley Labor Report. Welcome back to the show, folks. Really enjoyed our interviews. When we left, I was reacting to a comment saying that it's some government workers are not allowed to join unions, and I was in my head was stuck while we were talking about federal workers. My head was stuck in the federal employee land. And so what I said about government workers can join a union, a lot of them have unions. That's what I was thinking about. But somebody in the comments section said, "Hot take." That's their name. Some government workers do not have collective bargaining rights, and that is correct. Many state and municipal government workers do not have collective bargaining rights. It is explicit in some states and municipalities. Actually, it is explicitly illegal to have a collective bargaining collective bargaining agreement. It's illegal to strike, etc., etc. But in no situation can they make it illegal for you to join and be part of a union. So I appreciate that clarification. I wasn't thinking properly, but that's correct. In some places, you can't have a collective bargaining agreement. You can't strike legally, right? But they can still join a union. Indeed. And we've been talking recently a lot about the UE Local 150 in North Carolina, where that's exactly the case. They don't have collective bargaining rights, but they don't have the right to strike either. But they're striking, they're winning thousands of dollar bonuses for their members after going on strike. They're making a lot of gains in municipalities in North Carolina. So yeah.
Shout out to the UE.
Shout out to UE, and specifically UE Local 150. Okay. So, the UAW is, they are in their Stand Up 2.0. That's the name of the campaign that they're going with now, as they are trying to organize the unorganized in the non-union auto sector. They're going after 13 non-union companies right now. They have dropped cards nationwide at all of these locations. We went into detail about like the general plan and all of this kind of stuff last week. And the first location to go public with their campaign is Volkswagen in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Let's play this video that they created with Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga.
15 years ago, Volkswagen came to Tennessee. It meant a lot to our community. It meant a lot to us. We knew that in Germany and around the world, VW jobs meant good jobs. We knew that in Kentucky and Texas and right here in Tennessee, auto jobs meant secure jobs. But in the past 15 years, that's not what we got here in Chattanooga. The pay isn't keeping up. The benefits aren't what they should be. The question isn't why do auto workers at Volkswagen across the world get a better deal than us in Tennessee? And the question isn't why do GM workers in Spring Hill or Ford workers in Louisville get a better life? The question is, why don't we? For years, we've tried to leave this place better than we found it. We've tried to stand up for our coworkers, for our families, for Chattanooga. And for years, the company and their big money allies have tried to keep us down. But times have changed, and our time is now.
There's no question that the workers won here. These are major, major gains that, well, auto workers have not seen in decades.
Auto workers at Volkswagen in Chattanooga are ready to stand up. That's why we're announcing that over 1,000 of us have signed our union cards, and we're telling the world we're VW, we're UAW, and we're ready. Auto workers across the country are ready to fight for a better life, a better job, a better future. We're ready to stand up and join the UAW, and we're asking you to stand with us.
There you go, folks. Over 1,000 Volkswagen workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee have already signed union cards. That's over 30% of the workforce at that plant. So really, just huge news there. UAW.org/join is where you can sign a authorization card if you're a Volkswagen worker or a Toyota worker here in Huntsville. And if you're a Toyota worker here in Huntsville, then call us. Give us a call. Love to hear from you and hear about what's going on over there in Toyota. But Volkswagen, on their site where you can sign these cards, UAW.org/join, they have a section devoted to each corporation, each non-union auto company. And the Volkswagen section, and all of these sections are like kind of breakdowns of the profits and the executive pay and all of this stuff. And so Volkswagen, their profits are up more than 60% over the last 3 years. Their vehicle prices have soared by more than 40%. VW workers in Tennessee, however, are being left behind while just 13 top executives rake in a combined $60 million. It's time for VW workers to stand up and fight for more. So there you go, folks. UAW.org/join if you're a Volkswagen worker in Chattanooga, Tennessee, or if you're a non-union auto worker anywhere across the country. Luis Leon, much like he had the definitive article on the announcement of Stand Up 2.0, he has the definitive article on the Volkswagen card drop. It's in labornotes.org. The title of the article is Inspired by Strike Wins, 1,000 Volkswagen Workers Sign Union Cards. And so one of the things that he does well that's important is he talks about some of the history at the Volkswagen plant. He doesn't dive really deep into it, but if you want to deep dive into what happened at the Volkswagen plant, then you got to go to labornotes.org again, and you got to search for Chris Brooks. Chris Brooks has the definitive history on the Volkswagen campaigns by the UAW in 2014 and 2019. There have already been UAW campaigns at Volkswagen. And so Luis talks about how the two previous attempts fell short, but they fell short very narrowly. Unlike UAW attempts at other non-union automakers, like at Nissan, it was 2-1 against the union, a very big defeat. At Chattanooga, at the Volkswagen facility, it's very close. In 2014, they only lost by 86 votes. In 2019, they lost by only 57 votes with a 93% turnout. So, just really gut-wrenching losses there. There were 1,700 workers at the plant then, and now there are almost 4,000 workers. Almost 4,000 workers at the plants today. They build the Atlas and Cross Sport SUVs as well as the electric ID4. In 2015, a smaller group of skilled trades workers won their election by a vote of 108 to 44. Joining UAW Local 42, which formed as a minority union following the 2014 loss, but the company refused to negotiate with a smaller unit, delaying in the courts, and the UAW quietly jettisoned the effort, filing instead for a full unit in 2019. So that's kind of, and what a big reason that they still lost in 2019 was, and in the 2014 as well, is that there was a huge mobilization of the political and cultural elite in Chattanooga. The governor came and delivered an anti-union speech at the plant on behalf of the company. I mean, that's just a crazy level of collusion with the powers that be on behalf of the company. And this is a German company, right? Where their operations overseas in Germany are unionized. And so clearly this is a company that could handle, having a union in the workplace, but they don't want to because they can get away with it here because of our terrible, terrible labor laws. And so that they've been doing everything that they can to keep the union at bay. Cochran, who was one of the minority union members in the skilled trades department, told NPR in 2019 how outside anti-union groups tried to smear the union drive by tying the organizing to the FBI's raid of the home of UAW President Gary Jones, who was later convicted of embezzling union funds and tax evasion. And that is, that's such important context because now they're not going to have that anymore because of the new leadership. Thanks to one member, one vote in the UAW, the leadership is new, the leadership is clean, and they've been fighting at the Big Three and winning really great contracts. And so it's going to be a lot more difficult, to smear the UAW with the crimes of the past when it's a totally different leadership team. So that's going to be really helpful, I think, in the campaign. Luis quotes Billy Quigg, a production team member in assembly at the Chattanooga plant, who was also involved in the minority union. Among his top reasons for backing the union push are forced overtime on Saturdays and a lack of time off. He was one of the 700 Volkswagen workers who signed a June 2022 petition demanding the company, quote, do better on quality of life issues related to our schedules. Volkswagen workers have met the first of 3 milestones in the UAW's organizing plan. 30% have signed union cards. Once they reach 50%, then union leaders, community allies, and family members are going to rally the workers in public displays of the committee's strength and community support. And at 70%, and after having built up their organizing committee to include workers from every shift and job classification, workers will present the company with a choice. Voluntarily recognize the union, or workers will file for a union authorization election supervised by the National Labor Relations Board. So a very clear plan, moving very quickly. I mean, over 1,000 cards in less than a week. That's huge. So things are moving very quickly at Volkswagen in Chattanooga.
We might be making a trip to Chattanooga soon.
Yeah, it's only an hour and a half away. So I wanted to wrap this up by another video that the UAW put out more generally about the campaign. And so, if you're a non-union auto worker listening to this, you're taking a look at what's happening at Volkswagen in Chattanooga. here's another little push to join the UAW. Let's play this.
These hands.
These hands.
These hands.
These hands punch the clock.
These hands work the lines.
These hands build the cars.
And every dollar in profit these companies make
is made by these hands.
Whether at Toyota, Hyundai,
Mercedes, Volkswagen,
Rivian.
America's auto workers are at a crossroads. When the big three auto companies refuse to share their record profits.
Auto workers got to organize.
For over 40 days and nights, auto workers at Ford, GM, and Stellantis held the line and won big.
There's only one question facing America's auto workers now. Who's got next?
These hands don't belong to any company.
They don't belong to GM. They don't belong to Toyota.
They don't belong to Tesla. These hands belong to an auto worker.
And these hands will determine what happens next. This is our generation's defining moment.
Either we organize and stand up for ourselves,
or we keep falling further behind.
Either we fight for a decent standard of living,
or we sit down and shut up.
As long as we're divided, we're weak. But united, we can move mountains.
It's time for auto workers from all companies to join together.
From Illinois
to Alabama,
from Mercedes
to Toyota.
It's time to stand up.
All of us
as united auto workers.
So there you go. Really exciting stuff. And the comms department at the UAW continues to put out incredible videos.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, great work on that UAW comms department. Yeah, great work getting those workers there and involved in it. I think it was really powerful to see and to hear from folks from all over. Of course, love the Alabama presence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really, really appreciated that. I think it's effective. It would convince me. Granted, I'm biased, but
you would have taken a lot to be pushed over the line, though.
Right.
So that says a lot. That would convince you, Adam. I know that you're very skeptical. Of these things.
If I'm pretending to be a persuadable audience, it worked. So I really hope it's working. And yeah, absolutely for auto workers in the area. If you are union curious, go to uaw.org/join. You are, of course, welcome to reach out to us. And we would love to connect with people in the auto industry here in Alabama, especially those of you local in the Tennessee Valley here at Toyota Mazda, but also, Mercedes, Hyundai, wherever. If you're working in the auto industry in Alabama, in the South, we'd love to hear from you.
Yep.
We'd love to connect with you, and most importantly, we'd love for you to be connected with UAW.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a call. We have a caller on the line from a 314 area code. So we've got about 5 minutes before we need to wrap up. So it'll have to be a quick call. But let's bring him on the line. Our caller from a 314 area code. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm Daniel from St. Louis. Out of Progressive Law 41.
Daniel from St. Louis out of Machinist Progressive Lodge 41. Thanks for calling in. What's on your mind?
I just wanted. I recently had a quick little story that my union helped. That I think it's pretty important to see what unions can do on a personal level. I was recently hired into a job, and I did not get my cost of living increase or my pay bump. And after a probationary period, right. And I signed a contract in doing so. And so they didn't when they finally gave it to me a couple months later, the cost of the increase was retroactive to my old pay, but not in accordance with my new pay. And I asked my boss why, and he said, "Well, it's just 3 cents." And I said, "Well, I take the bus. It's a couple extra rides on the bus a week." And he said, "Yeah. Well, you're really gonna fight with?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay." And then I asked him, "Can I get my retro pay because I was owed 2 months extra pay?" And he
Right.
said, I can't do that. And so I talked to my steward, and my steward talked to the union, and then the union put the screws onto my job, and I got my back pay, and cost of living increased in course of my new pay. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The caveat I want to say is though is that I didn't. My union years ago, the job was screwing over new hires because of this, and so the union implemented a contract of new hires to sign so they could have a contract binding of a pay increase. And I just think that's a pretty interesting caveat I haven't thought of before, and it helps on a personal level as well. So yeah.
That's great. Love to hear stories about unions getting their members back pay when it's owed to them. And that, that kind of calls back to, we were talking about the VA Correct Compensation Act, how, there are some job classifications in the VA, Veterans Affairs Department, that are exempt, that their union, for somewhere in the law, some lawmaker was able to get it passed that the union is not allowed to represent their employees, their members in these issues where the agency is gypping them.
I gotta say, I really appreciate you sharing the story. I've worked some cases like that myself when I represented educators where, the COLA was based on the wrong salary, and it was based on a lower salary than what they actually made. So they were being shorted. Yes, it was a little amount, but it added up over time to be a significant amount, and I was successful in getting back pay for hundreds of educators in that situation, and it was about almost $250,000 in back pay that we got paid out for folks. So it added up, cumulatively for a lot of people. And so, good on you for fighting the good fight and for bringing it to your steward's attention, and good for the union for having your back on that. That's a good win.
Yeah, it was interesting because they didn't expect me to fight them. Because I told my boss, when he gave me my new rate, he said, "Don't talk to your coworkers about this." And I said that's illegal. And he had like a deer in headlights expression on his face. And he said, "Well, yeah, you're right. You can talk about whatever you want with your union." And I said, "Not just because we're not union. Anyone can do it." Okay.
Right.
Okay. So they really try to pull fast ones on people who aren't really aware of what they're capable of, person with or without union or just as a worker. So it was just like it's just a story I think I wanted to highlight that we see all these grand wins, which is nice, but on a personal one-on-one level, the union is still very, very good and very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much for calling in and hold it down for us out there in St. Louis.
Yeah. I'll also get one request if you can get Rob McKenzie. He's a former UAW president, and he wrote a book about how called El Golpe, about how the CIA, Ford, and the AFL-CIO used thugs to try to squash a unionization in a Mexican Ford plant.
Really? That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Sounds right up our alley, brother. Appreciate the recommendation.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, which is, with the new progressive solidarity with Gaza and whatnot, it might get more light shed on it, open more archives. But interesting guest for your Thursday show. So,
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. Well, take care. We're about to head on out of here, but thanks again for the call.
Solidarity. Have a good day.
Appreciate it.
As we're wrapping up, folks, labornotes.org/events. They have this month what to do when your union breaks your heart, getting started caucus development, all sorts of stuff. labornotes.org/events. Check it out. Adam is working with Alabama Arise to develop and host an advocacy training in January. Let him know if you're interested. Tennessee Valley Progressive Alliance held its meeting on December the 5th. You can check out their Facebook for more details there. Get involved with the North Alabama DSA and the Huntsville Citizens Climate Lobby for news about stuff going on in the area locally on the protest front. Shop Talk, we doing Shop Talk next week, Thursday?
To be determined.
TBD. That's going to be it for us, folks. Find us on Facebook, YouTube. We're going to continue the show. We've got a caller on the line. We'll start overtime with that, so don't go anywhere. 629 area code. We will get to you as soon as we get into overtime. For those on the radio, see you next week. Okay. All right, we're off the radio now. Appreciate everybody sticking around. Yeah, like I said, we got a great overtime lined up. Going to be right back. Ah, what the heck? The 629 hung up. Why did you hang up? Call back. We want to talk to you. What's going on? What's your problem?
Well, look, something could have happened. Something could have come up.
Jeez.
But if you were confused,
If you want to
we are staying on the air.
We are staying on the air. We're staying on the air.
We're just not on the FM radio anymore,
That's
which
right.
means
you can curse.
You
now
can.
if you want.
I guess if you really want to.
If you really want to, you can. So call us 844-899-8857, 844-899-TVLR. We will be right back with the second half of the show.
Come on, you poor workers, good news to you I'll tell. How the good old union has come in here to dwell.
Welcome back to the show. You're still listening to Alabama's only union talk radio program, the Valley Labor Report. We are now in the second half of the program that we call Overtime. We are off of FM radio, free from the shackles of the FCC censors. We appreciate everybody staying tuned. If you haven't, Logan says, I'm from Chattanooga, and this makes me so happy. I have a friend that works there, and it's so terrible at that plant. Indeed.
So here's what I want you to do, Logan. I want you to talk to your friend and get your friend plugged into UAW if they're not already.
Mm-hmm.
I also want your friend to check out our Unions 101, Unions 201 playlist. Just check it out, see if there's anything there of interest. There's other great stuff out there too. If your friend's not very familiar with unions, for example, Kim Kelly wrote a great explainer article for Teen Vogue a few years back that I still refer people to. And so now would be a great time for your friend to be kind of getting educated and learning and getting involved, learning their rights. You can find out all sorts of information on the NLRB website. National Labor Relations Board will have quite a bit of information. So, talk to your friend and encourage your friend to reach out to us if they need anything or just want to talk.
Stidham Family Gospel says, hello all, UAW 952 BC here in the aerospace industry. That's pretty cool. And you probably don't know this, Stidham family, but I'm a big gospel head. So you can bet that I clicked on your profile picture and I'm going to listen to some of your music after the show's over. So, but I love gospel music. Big fan of gospel music. And they said our COLA is a set amount for every hour of work. This year was 86 and a half cents per hour. So, very cool. Very cool. Yeah, COLA is really important. All right. Like I said, the phone number is 844-899-8857 if you want to call in. The line is open. Adam, Limestone County had an election last week. Talk to us about that. What's going on with that?
Oh, yeah. So there was an election last week in Limestone County. You probably didn't hear about it. Nobody did. And what it was a tax renewal. I want to be very clear about this. This is a renewal of a tax that is already on the books. It's not a new tax. It just says okay to renew what's already there. Well, voters in Limestone County, which is one of, if not the fastest growing county in North Alabama, or actually in the entire state, the voters did reject this property tax renewal. There were actually 4 different taxes on various ballots within Limestone County. It's kind of weird. You have the city of Athens. You have the Limestone County schools, right? These are folks who do not live in the city of Athens but live in Limestone County. You also have people who live in the city of Madison but who are in Limestone County. And so there were some different ballots out, but nobody showed up. Nobody voted. Well, I'll say nobody. 3% turnout. And I'm just going to say that I am a pretty engaged citizen. I check the news on a regular basis. I have rarely missed an election my whole life. And I'm not a fan of electoral politics, really, but I still vote. I did not know about this election until Saturday. I was out of town for Tuesday, and of course Saturday was way too late to request an absentee ballot. Same for my wife. She didn't know about it either. And so she also was out of town Tuesday, could not vote. I asked around, some friends and neighbors, family members. They didn't know about it either. And these are people who pay attention, who vote on a regular basis, people who, in some cases, have ties to education and are very much interested in this because these property tax renewals, what they fund is the local funds in our school systems. because in every school district, you have locally funded positions. You know, it could be extra teachers, it could be custodians, cafeteria workers, special education assistants, art teachers, for example. You know, so the state does not fund all of the teaching units and support staff that you need to run a successful school district. You have to have local funding for that. And so this is the local funding that was rejected. And frankly, I think it is a little bit disturbing. There was misinformation spread that it was a new tax, according to Madison City School Superintendent Ed Nichols. And I can attest that I received a strange text message. It was from a 256 area code number, so that's our area code. I received a 256 area code text message on Election Day morning telling me to vote no against this tax, that our taxes are high enough already. And that was concerning because I had not seen the first bit of effort on vote yes to renew. Now, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, Jacob, that the city of Huntsville had its property tax renewal a few years back. And you remembered, just like I remembered, there was a legitimate yes campaign that was run. And it was all sorts of people were involved with it. You had PTA moms and the schools foundation type people, businesses, you know, school board members were speaking out about it on a regular basis. There are restrictions on school districts and how much they are allowed to campaign for a tax renewal vote because of some history there in the legislature kind of cracking down on that kind of activity. Sources within Limestone County Schools told me the only thing they were told about it was through an email from their superintendent on Monday, the day before the election. That's past the time to vote absentee and a little late to get the word out. And so I think what happened is that there was literally no campaign to say vote yes. But there clearly was, at least on some level, a vote no campaign. Now, whether it's tied to local Republicans or what, you know, I think it's to be determined. Somebody sent me a text message, which means either there was a volunteer or a paid staffer sending out text in Limestone County on Election Day in opposition to a tax we already pay. Right? In Limestone County Schools, let's make no illusion about it, is not a well-funded school system. Okay? This is not Mountain Brook or Vestavia. Limestone County Schools just now added art teachers to the high schools like last year. They had no art in entire high schools, no art classes. There's, you know, a real stark difference in the level of staffing provided at Limestone County Schools, even compared to like Huntsville City Schools. And so, you know, if there were cuts in funding, if this tax renewal does not happen, it would be devastating. It would be devastating to the school systems. The good news is the tax sunsets in 2025, which means there is time to request another election. But that's going to take a little time. You've got to go through a process. You've got to request the election. But Lord help us if they don't run a yes campaign, because turnout was 3%. That's 2,389 of the county's 77,961 registered voters. Wow. And so what it appears is that a very, 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 very small margin of anti-tax right-wing extremists came out and it killed funding for local schools in North Alabama, in one of the fastest growing counties in the state. So that's a travesty, and frankly, I point blame at everyone, even myself. But the fact that I didn't know until Saturday is testament to how poorly it was advertised. Where was the local media? Where was the superintendent and the school board members? Where were the education organizations? Right? Superintendents, the school boards, the educators, the principals, they all have organizations that they pay dues to. Where were they? What about the PTA? You know, there's just a lot of questions that I have about how this could happen. And, you know, more importantly, what's going to happen next?
Right.
So is there a plan in place? As a resident of Limestone County, I plan on contacting the school board and finding out what the hell's going on, because this is really sad, and we shouldn't see our students and our educators put at risk because folks didn't want to run a campaign. So that's all I got to say about it.
What about the AEA? Did they not weigh in on these kinds of things?
That's a good question. Where were they? There are, restrictions on some of the things they can do electorally because of their agreement with the Republicans to do payroll dues deduction. And so they have, sacrificed some.
But they have their PAC, right?
Absolutely.
Obviously, I would just assume that in the same way. Well, I don't know. I guess can unions use dues money to advocate for, can unions use dues money for electioneering in nonpartisan ways, like for an ordinance? I don't know.
I think I've been told that C3s are able to do that to some degree, at least. I'm not a lawyer by any stretch. I get that there are restrictions on various entities and how they engage in electoral activity.
Yeah. Nevertheless, they've got the PAC, though, and they can do like whatever the hell they want with that, right?
If they could send me a postcard encouraging me to vote for Republicans every legislative cycle, I think they could probably send a postcard telling people to vote for property tax renewal. Yeah. But now, my understanding is that the AEA doesn't use their state PAC for local elections. But, perhaps they should reconsider.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
All right. Well, thank you for that, sir. Appreciate the update. Very important, really important stuff going on there. And hopefully the second election is a little bit better than the first.
Yeah, and thankfully Connor has some, answers for us because he has quite a bit of experience. Hopefully he has some guidance on how we can do better. Because that sucks. That just really, it stings. It sucks. 3% turnout. Teachers' jobs are on the line. And nobody freaking knew about it. No. I even checked the Athens Limestone News Courier, which is the daily paper in the county. They didn't have anything printed on Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Wow.
So, that's weird.
Yeah, that's bonkers.
So, anyway, hopefully Connor can fill us in while he tells us a little bit about what he's been up to.
There you go. And we've got Connor in the Zoom now, right?
That's right.
Great. Connor Lewis is the president of the Seven Mountains Central Labor Council. He is a member of the News Guild CWA. He won the presidency of the Labor Council on a campaign platform, a campaign promise to get an 8th mountain, is my understanding. Is that right?
Yeah, we're starting with the 8th and then maybe scaling out to the 9th, the 10th. The end goal is to have all the mountains, but we got to start small.
All of the mountains, moving them to the Seven Mountains Central Labor Council jurisdiction. So there you go.
One chain at a time.
One. That's right. And I haven't actually mentioned this on the show because this is the first show since this happened. But we are now, what's the word? We are now colleagues I'm president of the Labor Council here, is what I'm trying to say. So we are now
nice.
That.
Congratulations.
So thank you. So we're going to talk some more about your Labor Council stuff here in a second, because you've been doing some really great stuff with the Labor Council up there, and hoping to learn from what y'all have been doing both during this conversation and in future. But you reached out to us because you're a News Guild member, and there's a lot of organizing in the News Guild to call for a ceasefire. And there has been a lot of pushback in the News Guild, within the News Guild, and from without the News Guild, I think is my understanding. But more importantly, we're concerned with our fellow members and convincing them. And there's been a lot of pushback from within the Guild about objectivity. And so you have been doing a lot of reading and research and sharing a lot of this stuff about objectivity in the News Guild and how the union has in the past kind of interpreted this journalistic ethic, and how they have interpreted it in maybe a different way than some people want to today. So talk to us a little bit about that, about why is a ceasefire important? I guess we can start there, just generally. Why would it be good for a ceasefire in Gaza to happen as you see it?
Well, I think that one of the key ways, looking at it from the perspective of the Guild as a union and why it's important for the Guild specifically to speak up here, this has been one of the deadliest conflicts. In fact, not one of, it is the deadliest conflict on record for media workers. The Committee to Protect Journalists first began tracking this in 1992, and there has been no conflict that has had more civilian casualties, including the entirety of the Iraq War, either one, or Afghanistan. Take your pick. And certainly in the Ukraine, there have not been nearly as many media workers killed as in Gaza in a very short span of time. And I believe that the number is over 50 media workers who have been killed overwhelmingly by Israeli airstrikes. This is a horrifying conflict for a variety of reasons. But one of the things that's really important in moments like this and, in times of war and in times of conflict is to actually have the ability to shine a light on what is happening on the ground. That was always the big difference in Vietnam that really changed, I think, American sentiment about America's role in the conflict was when images started coming back to Americans of what was happening in Vietnam, images of the coffins coming home, of those journalists actually shedding a light on the conduct of the war. And because of the deaths of journalists, media workers, etc., there are very few media workers and really no Western media workers on the ground in Gaza because they'll be killed. And which means that we don't have a good picture of what's occurring for the civilians in Gaza. We don't have a good picture of what the conflict looks like, except from the brave journalists and media workers that have stayed on the ground and are reporting for outlets like Al Jazeera and some other outlets. And the consequence for American kind of knowledge and informing the American public about the conflict is pretty significant, because you'll see repeatedly, for example, CNN will say that X, Y, or Z is claimed to have happened by whatever source, including other media sources, with the final kind of footnote, CNN can't independently verify these. And so even when information is getting out there, it's with kind of an asterisk because Western media can't actually verify the information that's being reported. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I do journalism. And, there are newsroom reporters that would call me an advocacy journalist because I'm a labor journalist. And even among labor journalists, I'm not too shy about where my sympathies are. Right. But ultimately, one of the key roles of journalists is to be a voice for the people that don't have one, and to be skeptical of power and to, tell these stories. And right now, media workers can't do that.
you mentioned in your Substack piece about this that that actually one of the founders of the News Guild had a vision of journalism that was to right social wrongs, not to neutrally report the facts about just kind of random things, and inform people of what's going on. But one of the founders of the News Guild saw the purpose of journalism as to make the world better, to inform people about injustices so that they know how to fight them, right? Not just because, like, I don't know, this thing is happening, you decide, right? But he had a really particular view. Can you tell us about him?
So Haywood Brown, and I'm really interested to, I'm actually not certain if there are any biographies of him, but based on what I know, really interesting figure who was one of the most read columnists in the 1930s and was a huge supporter of the New Deal, of progressive programs. I believe, not sure when or if he resigned his membership, but at least at one point was a member of the Socialist Party. He was one of the key founders of the News Guild, and he was actually doing it from a position of comparative privilege compared to a lot of newsroom employees who were incredibly just underpaid. And it was an interesting situation in the news industry because typographers and a lot of the production workers were actually very, very heavily unionized. Almost all, pretty much all, I wouldn't say all, but very close to all newspapers had unionized typographers even through the 20s when union density was fairly low. But in comparison, the newsroom employees that were doing the writing were paid less even sometimes than the typographers. And so, he was fairly well compensated because he was such a widely read, columnist, but he was very, very, aware of the situation more generally in the news industry. And, it was a moment when, particularly, the idea of kind of neutrally reporting on what was happening in the country during the Great Depression really was kind of a farcical idea. And particularly, you had a lot of struggle in newsrooms between journalists that were basically being given editorial lines by their publishers, the William Randolph Hearst, the Chandlers of the world, that were incredibly opposed to the New Deal, opposed to the Roosevelt administration. They were actually struggling to have some kind of honest editorial, basically an honest editorial line on what was happening. And so it was a real kind of moment of upheaval in the newspaper industry generally, along with the rest of the country. And this is kind of where the News Guild was born. And it very quickly, within a span of a couple of years, really embraced a, very progressive, militant, vision of unionism. It was originally founded independently. It briefly affiliated with the AFL in 1936, but by 1937, it left for the CIO. And, then they started talking about sending money to Spanish Republicans in, Spain. I mean, they were incredibly involved in social advocacy and political advocacy on a range of things, including domestic programs that directly impacted them, like the National Recovery Act and various, programs, but also, in court packing. Part of the, discussion of changing the Supreme Court, they were active in advocating for it. So, this was where the Guild came from, and is kind of core to the Guild's identity.
And so, what is what's the counter argument? I guess this is it. It really I have a difficult time kind of understanding why the counter argument is persuasive to some people. Because it does seem to me that, like, yes, you want to be truthful, you want to say the truth, but, the view from nowhere is kind of, it's strange to me, but the advocates of the view from nowhere, or this objective approach, what are their arguments against a more of a principled kind of even activist journalism?
So, one thing that I think it's really important to emphasize is that the appeal to this kind of vision of, a radical objectivity, I'll say, as part of the kind of code of journalistic ethics, there were parallel moves toward correcting some of the issues with the more sensational journalism that was prevalent in the early 20th century. But the use of it by employers and newspaper publishers has always been part of their business model, because they want to sell newspapers, and two, it's been a union busting tactic, and it has been since the Guild's inception. The American Newspaper Publishers Association, from the beginning of the Guild, argued that membership in the Guild would threaten a free press, because it would create an outside association, an outside entanglement that would, according to them, threaten any kind of hope of objectivity. And I mean, this was key to their strategy. And one of the reasons I know that is, my grandfather was a member of the Guild. My great-grandfather and his brother, Harvey Kelly, actually helped bust unions, and the Guild specifically, for the American Newspaper Publishers Association. My great uncle was the chair of their special standing committee on labor relations for the entire newspaper industry. This was their strategy. It was to create the perception that being a good journalist and being a professional journalist was incompatible with being a union worker. And unfortunately, that's been internalized by a lot of journalists. And even though the Guild has kind of fought over that for decades and decades and decades, employers have still pushed these policies. The Guild hasn't always been successful in, chipping away at some of the more egregious restrictions on the freedom of journalists to act politically outside of their job. And, people are getting it in journalism schools. They're getting indoctrinated with the second they set foot into a J school. I taught a lot of University of Missouri journalism students, and they got it, from day one. And a lot of people, especially in the newspaper industry, the vast majority of reporters outside of some really prestigious publications are not particularly economically secure, just because of the general state of the newspaper industry. And so the risk of speaking up when you have all of these other pressures is scary. It's deeply scary. And then on the other hand, you have the very prestigious people, the senior folks at, prestigious publications that have kind of internalized this idea of, the consummate kind of, we're professionals, we're above these kinds of things, which they can do because they have a level of security and prestige that nobody else in the newspaper industry has. So, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on people to just kind of internalize this kind of concept of this kind of weird view from nowhere approach to journalism.
Right. And so that has been the argument from within the Guild to say, no, we shouldn't endorse a ceasefire in Gaza at this point, right?
Pretty much. And it's come from, primarily, legacy newsrooms that are, again, comparatively, not saying that they don't have issues and that there aren't, internal, kind of hierarchies within those newsrooms, but, these are ones where there's a little bit more prestige and there is a culture of fear with their management. I don't want to speak too much to what I've heard about, the New York Times, working at the New York Times, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they're particularly respected or respected or supported by, their management. And I would say the same at the Washington Post or any, Reuters, Associated Press, any of these places. And there definitely is a strong editorial push for a certain sort of coverage on a lot of things, especially on Gaza. And it's difficult to push back against that, especially when you're in maybe a unit that hasn't really fought a ton over the past couple of decades. It can be scary to take that step. I sympathize a lot with a lot of journalists who feel really torn between what they understand to be their professional obligations, employer pressures, and not having a history of that kind of collective action to be able to think, no, we can actually have our own voice in talking about this issue and what we want to do in talking about this issue. So it's a tough situation, and it's playing out in newsrooms, whether guild or not, all over the country right now with coverage of Gaza.
And how is the campaign going? How did it start, the move to push the News Guild internationally to call for a ceasefire, and where does that campaign stand right now?
So, it initially started among rank and file members, some of whom are journalists, some of whom the Guild represents a lot of union staff and nonprofit workers as well, who are, very socially and politically engaged, as just part of their job, including, my local, the Washington Baltimore News Guild, represents the staff of Jewish Voice for Peace. So we represent some of the people on the front lines of fighting for a ceasefire. And, there's a tension between these newsrooms that, have this perception of what the Guild should do or shouldn't do because of their kind of viewpoint of journalism, and the reality that the Guild represents a lot more than just newsroom journalists. And it historically always has. It's never always been newsroom journalists. My grandfather worked in advertising. He had done some journalism, but he ended his career in the advertising department. And so, it started there and really started trying to have that discussion with the executive council. And one of the things that I will say, and this is just my viewpoint, is that the Guild has an incredible internal democracy. And I think that there are very few other unions, if any, where people raising this concern would be given a platform to speak directly to the executive council of the entire, international union within a couple of weeks, and to voice their concerns directly to the executive council. And it's something that I think is really, I value a lot about the Guild. There still is a lot of hesitation about, a ceasefire. The Guild had already called for protecting journalists and for the combatants in Israel specifically to respect the fact that journalists are protected by the Geneva Conventions. And they just recently reiterated that call, along with committing to financially supporting the International Federation of Journalists fund for reporters on the ground, most of whom it's going to mostly be going to Palestinian journalists, as well as, again, just reiterating the importance of protecting journalists as well. So it's still an ongoing discussion, and it's a deep, I'm not going to say fissure because I think that overstates it, but it's a deep question in the Guild about, what the relationship is between, a journalist, what they view as their professional obligations, and the Guild as their union. And from my perspective, I think that even a journalist that believes in this kind of view of from nowhere kind of commitment can still support. And historically, that has been an argument that folks in the Guild have, embraced. You can commit to that in your day job while still supporting collective action through your union on political matters. And if anything, I would say that reemphasizes the importance of doing it as a union, because then it's not calling into question any individual journalists, political commitments, or, they're not, putting their name to something. It's their union is standing up for something. So to me, it actually reemphasizes the importance of, if you want to take a stand and you believe it's important, then do it through your union. But it's an ongoing discussion that's going to have to keep continuing. And honestly, has a lot bigger implications, I think, for a view of what people want the Guild to be. as one of the most, militant and pound for pound, it's done some of the most organizing of any union in the country over the past, 6, 7, 8 years. It's enormous amounts of organizing. And I think that, there needs to be a discussion about what is our vision of what the guild should be? And I think that that's a conversation. I have my opinions, but, I think that that's something that the membership needs to really kind of figure out. And it's a conversation that I think is really happening in a productive way right now, precipitated by, the debate over the ceasefire.
Jacob, I was just going to jump in real quick to say that what you just described and those kind of conversations that are happening, and in some cases, I'm hearing that from other people in other unions as well, where this sort of internal organizing around this issue is happening. And I talked to a brother yesterday who told me that it's actually brought a lot of his coworkers and union members together in a new way. People that didn't normally talk to each other or maybe weren't normally very engaged in the union are now all working together in solidarity for this effort and are really, building some relationships that hopefully will gain steam and lead to just more positive transformation all around.
Connor, there's on the electoral front, AIPAC has been making a lot of moves to try to discourage any elected officials from weighing in, against Israeli aggression on behalf of Palestinian, justice and peace for them. And it was mentioned in the chat by MIDI doctors, concern about if AIPAC is going to be kind of wading into these waters with against the News Guild and similar. I saw similar worries on Twitter about the UAW after the UAW International called for a ceasefire. There was somebody expressing concern about how this would affect the new Stand Up 2.0 campaign to organize non-union workers. Is there any indication that institutionalized Israeli support groups like AIPAC are going to be wading into this on the labor front?
I haven't seen any. I think it's a real concern, and I think that there have been glimpses of outside groups interfering in internal union matters or going after unions on social issues for some time now. I think that my viewpoint would be that were that to happen, I would hope that every labor union, every labor leader, regardless of their viewpoints individually and institutionally on the question of a ceasefire, would categorically fight any attempt to attack the labor movement for decisions reached by individual unions, as well as attack any attempt to interfere in internal union democracy. And I would say that from my perspective, that is a categorical red line that the labor movement should maintain, that our internal democracy and our internal deliberations are our own. Outside interference in those is categorically off limits. And, ultimately you can disagree with where we end up as an outcome of that democratic process, but you don't get to attack the process itself. Because I think that that's a really important red line in maintaining internal union democracy, because otherwise, it opens potential floodgates for outside domination of internal union life. And I would say that, I don't know in any kind of detail all of AIPAC's donors, but there are definitely some large ones that I can think of that also are owners of businesses that employ union workers. And I would say that, if they start getting involved in anything internal with unions or trying to influence the internal direction of union discussions, I would say that there's some major legal concerns there that the Department of Labor should be looking into, because it's categorically illegal for companies or anyone that employs, union workers or employs workers in an industry that labor is trying to organize, to interfere in internal union matters. And
well,
so
I think that,
I would say that,
I think that would be definitely an issue. Trying to sway members one way or another,
Right.
or antagonize them against their leadership for this.
Right.
But I think what comes to my mind immediately would be, APAC running commercials in Huntsville, targeted at Toyota workers, saying, because the way that APAC has been fighting the politicians that they don't like has not been, look, they hate Israel, right? Because people don't, really working people don't care about that. It's just not something that most working people, you say the UAW called for a ceasefire in Gaza. Okay, that's fine. I don't care. That's even, it'll range from like ambivalence to neutrality to good, in most cases. In more cases than in more cases, UAW called for a ceasefire is going to elicit a good emotion than a bad emotion, right? So, but that's not how they're attacking the politicians. They're just saying they're not good Democrats for totally different reasons, right? They're not even going after them on the question of Israel at all. It's totally different reasons, just general anti-ads towards these against these politicians. And so my potential concern would be, APAC running a commercial here, on the radio or on Facebook targeted at Huntsville Toyota workers saying, UAW bad, right? Not UAW's pro-Palestine, but UAW bad. And similar for News Guild, as y'all are organizing news shops and stuff like that. That would be, I think, the kind of the concern that would come to the front of my mind. But I, like you, I haven't seen any indication that's on the horizon.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately, if it's not them, it's going to be someone else. And even better than me, the role that right-wing politicians have played in attacking, UAW's past campaigns in the South. In Tennessee, the company was technically neutral in Chattanooga, but they could claim that because they knew the politicians were going to do the dirty work for them. Right. So, from my perspective, look, they're going to pull that. They can pull that. I think that that's really not going to be particularly more, damaging than just any other aspect of a typical boss campaign. I guess the only difference would be that they got a lot of money to pour into it. Yep. But again, I would be very curious, and this is something I don't know. At what point does an outside group trying to influence the outcome of a union election start to interfere with the right of workers to have, the NLRB under the current NLRB, they're very big on laboratory conditions for, without any kind of scare tactics or anything like that. I would be very curious to know, how that could impact the elections, how they could be held accountable for that, or, if employers that if I were an employer looking at the current NLRB and looking at the standard for elections right now, I'd try to warn off anyone that thinks they're trying to help me, because I don't want to get the NLRB to say that no, that was that tainted the election. We're just going to issue a bargaining order. So I'm not sure what possibility there is to do that when you have outside kind of messengers kind of paying to influence a union election. But I think that there are probably more ways that it can blow up in their face than ways that it can hurt organized labor if they try to go that route.
From your lips to God's ears, if I am a News Guild CWA member and I want to sign on to the call to push the national union to call for a ceasefire, where do I need to go?
Well, that is a very good question, and I wish I had a clear answer. I should have had one prepped, but I think that the best way to for just the meantime is that you can on Twitter. I'm not going to call it whatever the hell it is. you can follow the, I'm actually going to look up the account as we speak. I'm kind of riffing here. You can follow the Twitter account at CWA _4, that's the number 4 _ Palestine. And that's a good kind of point of reference. You can, it has open DMs, I think, so you can DM that account and ask for some more information. And it's also got a link tree that goes to a variety of different things, including, you know, donations to journalists in Gaza and that kind of thing. So that would probably be the best kind of initial point, would be to follow the Twitter account CWA number 4 _ Palestine.
So you're not only organizing in that area, you are also, like I said, president of the Seven Mountains Central Labor Council in Pennsylvania, and you have been doing a lot of work with the building trades in passing local ordinances and electing local politicians, particularly on, you know, their friendliness to labor. So talk to us about both of those things. How, and we can start with the ordinances. Explain to us what the ordinances that you have been able to get passed are, and how you built up a coalition to for a successful campaign.
So, as some background, Center County has, which is where, you know, State College, Penn State, you know, and is one of the 4 counties in our labor council, the most populous one, has an enormous amount of development in the State College area. A lot of it is just there's always some kind of building project going on at Penn State's campus, but just the area is growing, and it has been growing for a long time. And, you know, there's a lot of major construction going on, both public and private development. It also has a major issue with worker safety, and there have been a number of worker deaths on the job, primarily within the construction trades, including a Days Inn worker that fell to his death. He was from Maryland. He was working on, he was working for a contractor, local contractor, as the general contractor, but was directly employed by a subcontractor based in Maryland. And he was actually here on the job from Maryland and fell to his death. It's really, I think, a basic, you know, idea that a worker should be able to come home safely from their job at the end of their shift. And this is not the reality for construction workers in our area. And so what we did is we looked at different ways that we could actually try to address that. We can't do that much about private development because state law in Pennsylvania restricts local government from a lot of regulations for private business. Basically, the only city in Pennsylvania that can really get away with regulating private business is Philadelphia, because of the way the municipal code is written. And so one way that we can do something is actually create some standards that, so at least on public projects, they have to meet certain standards. And it's typically called a responsible contractor ordinance. Some places it's called a responsible bidder ordinance, but it's basically changing the local government's purchasing code to say, before we enter into a contract for someone for construction work, they have to meet these kinds of pre-qualifications. And usually it's saying that we haven't committed, you know, significant wage and hours violations over the past couple of years. We haven't committed significant OSHA violations. We haven't been debarred by any public agency. And we have the necessary craft labor to be able to do this job, and that we have the necessary apprentices or, you know, apprentice completers within the respective craft, you know, category to be able to do this job correctly. So it's basically just a bare minimum. We're not, you know, a rat contractor, and, you know, we actually use trained workers. It's a very, very basic kind of proposal, and it's important because under Pennsylvania law, local government is obligated to accept the lowest quote unquote responsible bid, but the term responsible is completely undefined. And so in practice, what it means is they have to submit the lowest bid. And the way that contractors get the lowest bid is by misclassifying their workers, by saying that someone that's doing 8 hours in bricklaying is doing 4 hours in bricklaying and 4 hours as general labor, which is wage theft, and actually led to one of our local contractors being the subject of the largest criminal prevailing wage case in US history, and paying back over 20 million in stolen wages. And this particular company, even after stealing $20 million from their employees, can go and bid on a public project. They're in the process of potentially getting debarred from, Pennsylvania Department of Transportation projects. But if they bid on a local government project and they're the lowest bid, local government has to take that bid, which means that taxpayer dollars are going to a company that's stealing money from its workers. And so that's what we kind of sought to do, was to give local government the ability to actually set standards, saying that tax dollars aren't going to go to contractors that are cutting corners on jobs, that are stealing wages from their workers, that aren't doing good work and aren't doing their work honestly. And we managed to actually pass that at the county level, which was much more difficult because, Center County is, I would say after the election, I would say it's probably a blue county, but before that, I would have said it's a pretty purple county. It's not that long since it was a Republican-controlled county. And we passed it at the county level, and then overwhelmingly, after a lot of political work and mobilization, re-elected the majority commissioners that helped us pass it, even though the local GOP was throwing the kitchen sink at trying to unseat them. And they actually got the highest vote totals of any county commissioners in county history. And a lot of that was that we were able to go to a lot of our members, a lot of whom are Republicans. A lot of them are Republicans, right. Especially in the trades, and say, look, they are actually delivering for you. They are doing tangible things to make you safer, to make jobs, to provide jobs for you locally. So they're not, bringing in unskilled workers from, other counties, that there are jobs for apprentices right here. And so it really, I was a nervous wreck heading into the election. And ultimately we were able to fight and get it at the county level and deliver pretty much a mandate that, that's what voters wanted. Right. And we built a coalition of the trades. We built a lot of support from elected officials that were supportive, community groups, community leaders. It looked very different than most RCO fights, because at the final voting meeting that the county commission had, we outnumbered the contractors, and it wasn't all, union building trades folks. It was Penn State professors. It was elected officials. It was just community members. It was retirees. There were a couple of unorganized, construction workers there. We had a very diverse set of people speaking for why this was important to them, and that really helped pay off.
That's awesome. That's really great. And it was actually so successful that you've kind of began, occupying the headspace of some local Republican power players rent-free. Is that? I think I've seen you on Facebook and Twitter. They're coming after you.
Oh yeah, they are salty about the Labor Council. And I will say, in full candor, we did spike the football a little bit after election night, so I think that we got a reaction from that. But ultimately, they are just dramatically out of touch if they think that attacking union workers in the year 2023 in Pennsylvania, of all places, is going to pay off for them. And if that's the route that they want to go, then by all means, I welcome them continuing down that road, because it's just a road to marginalizing themselves.
Have you written any? You've got a Substack, and you do freelance journalism sometimes. Have you written any sort of play-by-play of this of your RCO campaign that other labor councils could look at and use as their own roadmap?
I've been trying to think about the right place to do it, because I've thought about doing that because I think it would be helpful. And these measures have expanded dramatically throughout Pennsylvania over the past couple of years, and they've been in place even in places like Indiana and Ohio for a long time. It got very partisan in our area, mostly because we've got a ton of scab contractors headquartered here that bankroll the local GOP. But in a lot of places, it hasn't. It's been passed in, Republican-controlled counties, Republican-controlled, cities, including in Pennsylvania. So I've thought about the best place to do it. Reporting, I'm too close to the story, even from, I may be an advocacy journalist, but I'm too close to the story to feel comfortable reporting on this, specifically. But yeah, it's something that I've definitely been looking at, trying to figure out how to write up, because I think that there's some good stuff that would be helpful for folks, in a wide range of areas, not just in, Democratic, places. And I've even talked to some folks in some more red counties in Pennsylvania that are interested in doing similar stuff.
Mike could reach out to NAB2 and get them to pay you to write up a training program, and you can tour the country talking to building trades councils.
Yeah. Well, I just got to say, I love the story, and I'm inspired, and I think that we can do some work here in North Alabama, and would love to be able to, learn from your success and try to implement that here in our neck of the woods.
Yeah.
All right. Appreciate it, Connor. Thanks for taking the time.
All right. Thanks, fellas. Always happy to be on.
Yeah, appreciate you. Keep up the good work.
All right. Connor Lewis, News Guild member, president of the Seven Mountains Labor Council, doing some great work over there in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, absolutely. And, appreciate the conversation about Palestine and the internal union organizing that's happening there. I feel that it's important for our unions to take a stand, and I was kind of brought into politics by thinking about international issues and the Iraq War in particular. I was really thinking about that before I got to thinking about labor unions. But yeah, I think it's important work that's happening. Was really appreciating hearing about the internal democracy of the News Guild. That's important and worth highlighting, as well as the need for us to protect our union democracy from outside forces.
Yeah.
I think those are legitimate concerns, and I think the more power we build, because there is momentum behind the labor movement now, and people are talking about us, like folks who didn't normally talk about labor, and it's on people's radar in a new way. And whenever that happens, you have to expect reactions. And so the bad guys are going to fight back even harder. We have to be prepared for that.
Yeah. Metal 1520 says, thanks for keeping me company while delivering the mail. Great show. Thank you. Appreciate it. And thank you for your service. We back the blue, the Postal Service here. Big backers of the Postal Service. Here's something. GM, we were talking about GM over in Spring Hill converting 125 employees to permanent status from temporary status, and how this is really going to be a life-changing situation for dozens of workers in Tennessee. And we've actually got a interview scheduled with one of those newly permanent employees and the president of the local union, UAW Local 1853, that I'm looking forward to bringing y'all. And so that's a really feel-good story about GM. Here's a really feel-bad story about GM. Stock buybacks. They have announced recently a new stock buyback program. And, what stock buybacks, functionally what those do is inflate the they inflate the stock price by decreasing the amount of stocks that are on the market, right? So that kind of makes sense. If I'm a company and I have 100 stocks and each stock is $10, if I buy back 10 of those stocks for $100, then there's only 90 stocks left on the market. And so each one of those stocks is going to be worth a little bit more, supply and demand kind of thing. So it's market manipulation a little bit. And it was before Ronald Reagan illegal to do that. But that's what stock buybacks are. And it's meant to increase stock prices. The reason that GM wants to increase stock prices is because after the UAW contract and during the negotiations and during the strike, the GM stock price has been falling. And so this has created some concern among the executive class at GM. And so they want to increase the stock prices so that the people, the shareholders, continue to make money and they continue to elect the CEO to be CEO. And it's really kind of a vicious, parasitic kind of thing. Like, oh, you make me as a shareholder more money and then I'm going to keep electing you CEO. Doesn't like, are you making a good product? Are you treating your workers well? That's not really in the mind of a lot of shareholders. It's, are you making me money? So that's why they're issuing they're doing the stock buyback program. And one of the reasons that their stock has been falling has been because of the concern around labor costs from this new UAW contract. And the total cost of the increase, the total increase in labor cost is projected to be about $9.3 billion over the next 4.5 years, over the course of the contract. And so that sounds like a lot, $9.3 billion. And so you hear that.
For how many years, remember?
For like 4.5 years. That's the increased price. And that is the reason that the stock price is falling, remember. And that is also the reason that GM is saying that they are going to increase car prices by about $500 a pop. Which, when you consider the price of cars nowadays, $500 a pop is really not just a whole lot of money. But
cars are really expensive.
Cars are ridiculously expensive, and $500, in and of itself that's a lot of money. And so that's the whole justification for this thing, right? $9.3 billion over 4.5 years. That's why you, consumer, are going to have to pay $500 more per car. That's what they're saying. And so this stock buyback program that they announced a couple of weeks ago, the company said it, and I'm reading from ABC News. The company said it plans to buy back $10 billion of its shares over the next year, 12 months. $10 billion over 12 months, which is about 1/4 of its $44 billion market value, with $6.8 billion in stock buybacks coming immediately. A spokesman says GM expects the stock buyback to end up at about 20% of the company's outstanding shares, based on expected price increases.
Now wait a second, Jacob.
Yeah.
You're telling me that the new contract cost about $9.5 billion over 4.5 years.
Yep. And that's why you have to pay $500 more a car.
And that's why
Right.
it costs more to buy a Ford or a GM,
Right.
or
Because the workers are greedy.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, the workers. And
they make too much money.
Last I checked, $10 billion was a little bit more than that.
Are you
10's more than 9, and also 10 over 1 year versus 9 over 4.5 years.
Interesting.
So I don't know. Just seems to me like if they're charging more, they're spending more on stock buybacks. They're spending more on that than they are on the workers and the new contract.
Yeah.
So when you hear folks say that, and you are gonna hear those folks, I know we'll hear them down here. Wherever you're at, you're going to hear these folks complaining that because of the UAW, because of the union workers, because folks are greedy, they want to be paid too much, that's why it's costing more.
Yeah.
But
and
now you know.
Right. Now you know that is bullshit. But also, even on the labor cost itself, like just in isolation, okay, like now take out of your mind this stock buyback plan. They're planning to spend more money in 1 year on stock buybacks than they're paying in increased labor costs over 4.5 years. Okay, just forget about that for a second. The concern in isolation, is that a lot of money? $9.3 billion over 4.5 years, increase in labor costs. Is that a lot of money? That's what the company will tell the consumers, and when they're doing public-facing press releases. But on shareholder calls, that's not what they're saying. On a shareholder call, CEO of GM, Mary Barra, said the new labor contracts were higher than the company expected, yes, but not significantly. So what she's saying to her shareholders is like, yeah, it's a little bit more than we expected, but it's not really that much. It's negligible. It's not really a big deal how much more money that we're going to be spending over the next 4.5 years. This is,
which is quite starkly different from how she was talking just a few weeks ago during the strike, right?
Right. Absolutely, total ghoul behavior from these people. And from the class of people that are going to be repeating this stuff about you having to pay $500 more per car because of the workers. Because there are some people, like I think probably, the radio hosts on local stations, they fall into a class of people that they just don't know anything, right? Like we've talked to one person who, he didn't know what right to work was. He hadn't heard of the McKay Doctrine. He didn't think that you could fire striking workers. Like some people are just totally clueless, and they see something on the news and it kind of fits their narrative about workers bad. Workers make too much money. Workers greedy, unions bad. They see that something that fits that narrative and they just run with it, and they don't do any investigation, and they don't feel any need to do any investigation, and so they don't. And they just run with it, and they don't know any better. But there is another class of people who follow this kind of stuff and continue to parrot this company propaganda that are just liars, right? And among that class of people is the executive class at these companies, because they know these numbers, obviously. And yet, a couple of weeks ago, like Adam said, they were running around like chickens with their heads cut off, talking about how much the UAW is asking for and how it's unreasonable and how it would, totally destroy the company. And now they're saying the increased labor costs are not much higher than expectations.
Right. Oh, and here's another thing about this kind of talking point, because we encounter it so much, and it's like, okay, you're complaining that they're making more money, but out of the other side of your mouth, you're always talking about making more money. Like, that's what drives you in life.
Right.
Because, frankly, a lot of the people who say this kind of stuff, that's what drives them, making more money. Yeah. That's what they care about, right? A lot of times it's small business owners that are saying these kind of arguments.
Yeah.
They are about making more money. Why do you have a grudge against these auto workers? They figured out a way to make more money.
Right.
That's what you've devoted your entire life to. It's why you don't work. You employ other people to work for you because you want more money. Right. And you figured out that that's the way for you to get more money. Well, they have figured out that collective action and collective organization is a way for them to get more money.
Right.
Why are you hating?
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. It's awful. It should make you mad. It should make you mad. Here's another story about corporate greed, but this is probably going to put a smile on your face. We've been following the issue with Tesla in Scandinavia fairly closely. I'm in intermittent conversation with some journalists over in Sweden, trying to get them on the show. I'd like to get them on the show next week, but we're gonna see what happens. But Tesla is having a big issue with its Swedish with its Swedish part of the company, as their mechanics at Tesla in Sweden have gone on strike. And in Scandinavia, they have, in very many ways, more freedom than workers in the United States. In particular, freedom around their work and the freedom to engage in sympathy strikes when they want to. You know, in the United States, it's illegal to go on a secondary strike, to strike a company, to strike a company's goods if you are not, employed by the company yourself, right? So if I'm if I work for, widget company A, and there's a widget company B as a component piece in widget company A, widget company B, their workers can't go on strike to support the widget company A's striking workers. That's illegal in this country, land of the free, right? But in Sweden and Norway and Denmark, in all these Scandinavian countries, it is not. They have that freedom. And so after the Swedish mechanics went on strike and Tesla continued to refuse to engage in collective bargaining with them, then other Swedish unions went on strike. There are now as many as 8 unions in Sweden that are engaged in strikes against Tesla and Tesla products, including the postal union. The post office in Sweden is no longer delivering mail to Tesla. I mean, that is just incredible. And Musk took the postal union to court over this. They're like, this is a government service. You can't stop me from getting a government service, blah, blah, blah. And the court was like, yeah, no, they can. That's fine. It's fine. So the union won the court case in Sweden. That's incredible. Really excited by that. Another big fat L for Elon Musk. But the L's just keep coming because port workers, dock workers in Denmark, Norway, and now Finland are all blocking deliveries to Tesla. So any Tesla products coming from any of those countries are no longer going to be loaded onto the docks. And any Tesla cars that get to Sweden's docks are not going to be unloaded because the Swedish dock workers are one of the unions that are engaging in sympathy strikes. But so the dock workers in Denmark, Norway, and Finland are no longer loading Tesla cars onto the boats to get carried to Sweden. So a really amazing display of solidarity over in Scandinavia. And it still keeps coming because one of Denmark's largest pension funds announced that it is going to sell its holdings of Tesla stock over this issue, over Tesla's refusal to bargain with the Swedish mechanics. So really, really...
That's awesome.
Yeah. Pension Denmark sold the shares at a market value of $67 million, according to Reuters. And some Swedish pension funds have also urged Tesla to sign the agreement with the union, according to Reuters, but so far have held off on selling shares. So we're going to see if this trend continues of Scandinavian unions selling shares of Tesla.
Now, this is an open question because I really don't know the law. Is there some regulation on pension funds in the United States in doing such a thing? Unions have their own pension funds, and then of course there are state pension funds that unions advocate to defend and whose members make up the majority of the members. So I don't know. I don't know if there is opportunity for more pressure and advocacy around our pension holdings, but something I have considered is how many of us have our retirement invested in evil corporations that fight us all the time during our active life as workers. And that's wild. We're investing in our own demise. And so I really applaud Denmark's pension fund there for taking this stand. I think that's important. You've got to hit them from every angle, right? And they're taking hits. They're taking hits left and right, and I love to see it.
Right. I do think that American pension holders that are held, well, most American pensions are operated jointly with the union and the employer, right?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I think so. I don't know. It's a question. I don't know.
And if you're listening and you have some expertise on pension funds,
844-899-8857. Give us a call.
Send us an email. Yeah, let us know what you think, because that's a topic I haven't really explored. But seeing something like this, it makes you wonder.
Yeah, yeah, and that's oh shoot. What was I going to say?
Well, anyway, in terms of pension, funds, if someone's listening and they do have some knowledge of that, I would be really curious to know. And I know you were going to talk a little bit about why sympathy strikes are so important, and why they're, of course, banned here in the United States because of the power that they have.
Right.
And
yeah, no, I mean it is really, and this is how Scandinavian unions have gotten other U.S. corporations to capitulate as well. In particular, McDonald's and Toys R Us are a couple of corporations that went through this exact scenario, where all of the Swedish unions struck them. All of them, the printers, the postal carriers, everybody just struck these belligerent U.S. corporations, and they got them to capitulate. And so we'll see what happens with Tesla. We'll, of course, keep following this. I'm going to try to get somebody from over there to talk to us about it. But it is, the one difference I would say with Tesla is that Elon Musk is like a maniac. I think there was an ideological element to McDonald's and Toys R Us, but I don't think the shareholders and the boards of these other companies are not as erratic as Elon Musk. And so we'll see kind of what happens there if his other shareholders kind of get the better of him and force him to come to the table, so that they can start making money again, right? Or if he'll continue to be belligerent. But it's in Scandinavia, these collective bargaining agreements are even more important than they are in the United States, because Scandinavian countries don't really have the same government protections that workers in the United States do. Scandinavian countries, by and large, they don't have minimum wages, they don't have vacation, overtime pay, all of this other stuff. It's all bargained collectively in the collective bargaining agreements. And so because 90% of private sector workers are covered under, union collective bargaining agreements in Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, all these places. There is a de facto minimum wage in these countries of like $23 an hour or something like that, with 6 weeks of vacation. But that's not government mandated. That is from workers' collective bargaining power. And so that makes this kind of thing all the more important for these unions to be able to win, because it's really an existential kind of thing for them. If Tesla is able to break through and break into their market and continue to operate non-union without the same benefits in collective bargaining agreements that other workers have, then that could be, the tip of the spear for other capital to begin, breaking Scandinavian unions like they have in the United States. And so there's a lot of support in those countries for these unions, and a lot of commitment and a lot of reason to be committed on the part of these unions to beat Tesla here. So we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sending all our solidarity to our union kin across the pond over there in Scandinavia.
Yeah.
Keep up the good fight.
Stidham Family Gospel says, generally the company pays a rate per hour worked to the pension fund, and some are administered by the state. It's better to have a national pension so it cannot be filed in bankruptcy. Jose says, in sad news to report, the Medieval Times Buena Park, California workers had to return to work unconditionally, and 3 striking workers were not allowed to return. One of them was the strike captain.
Yeah, that sucks. That's not good news to hear. They have had a really long struggle.
Man, I hate to hear that. That is a bummer. It's been a very long struggle. Jim Vanderveen asks, how many workers at Tesla's California Fremont, California plant have signed up with the UAW? It's not public yet.
Yeah, that's a good question.
So
I know.
We'll see.
There has been some public discussions of it, obviously.
Right.
So it's happening, but they haven't, I guess, hit that 30% threshold yet, I'm assuming.
Yeah, probably. But I mean, but one reason is like there's 20,000 workers at the Fremont plant. It's a huge plant, so 30% of that would be like
it's a lot of people.
6,000 people. Yeah, it's a lot of people. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. I know you talked last week about the campaign, but I think it really has the potential to transform the industry. It has the potential to transform the labor movement, and I think it has the potential to transform the South. Places like Alabama, I mean, multiracial unionism, militant unionism, that's what we're lacking. It is a missing ingredient to positive social change that we desperately need here. And so really excited, really pulling for the UAW. It's change comes from the bottom up, and it's going to take just rank and file auto workers joining together, seeing how they have common interest, and building their power together and joining with the UAW and seizing the momentum, because now is the time to do it. There is no better time than now. So if you're thinking about it, if you know people in the auto industry, point them in the right direction. Now's the time to unionize everywhere. If you're listening to this and you're a non-union worker, reach out to folks because there are people who will help you. I know it's cliche that we call each other brothers and sisters and kin and siblings, but there are folks in this movement who really believe in that, and they will help you. So that's what I encourage all workers to do, is to organize, and that's why we do what we do every week, and it's why folks like y'all tune in, and the more we pull in the same direction, the more progress we'll make.
With that, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Appreciate everybody's time. We'll see you next week.
Solidarity, y'all.